Chapter 1153. Bang! The bluish-purple light from the explosion of the magic crystal cannons lit up half of the sky. Even the ground shook violently. The night was illuminated, and the flags of the kingdom of Shang could be faintly seen among the tiny snowflakes. The Black Lava Army had arrived, and they were flying the flag of Vanguard General Lu Liang. Lu Liang? I'm afraid it won't be bright today. Under the illumination of the fire, Qianfeng pulled out his sword and shouted in a low voice, "Armored demon camp, cavalry camp, prepare for defense." Behind him, rows of high-level demons were already waiting in a square formation. Additionally, there were armored demons carrying warhorses and wearing armors. The opponent could not be underestimated. Although the Black Lava Army had been reorganized, there were 5,000 gods from the original Heaven Realm. Most of their strength was in the Heaven Realm, or the Holy Domain. They were much stronger than ordinary soldiers. They were definitely not some useless people that could be easily defeated. Moreover, the land battle was different from the sea battle. The strength of the practitioners could be displayed more comprehensively. However, a group of armored demons roared ferociously and fearlessly looked at the Black Lava Army in the distance. Beside Qianfeng's formation was Lin Muyu's Longdan Army Camp formation. He was dressed in a white robe and stood in the wind and snow. He said to Fengxi beside him, "Protect with shields. Once the Black Lava Army enters 300 meters, start shooting. We must prevent the Black Lava Army from getting close. If they rush over, change to the spear formation to defend. Continue and maintain the firepower of the artillery camp." "Yes, Lin General." Fengxi raised the flag. At this moment, bang 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 sounds of cannons were heard. Nearly 100 magic crystal cannons continuously bombarded the battlefield in the distance. The Black Lava Army's vanguard cavalry camp suffered heavy losses. However, there were many of them, and the Longdan Army camp did not have many cannons. Hence, they had to hold back and let the opponent get closer before attacking. The light from the magic crystal cannons illuminated the entire battlefield as if it was daytime. The Black Lava Army charged forward as if they had gone mad. They had no way to retreat. The law enforcement camp was just below the northern pass. Anyone who retreated would be shot to death without mercy. The densely packed cavalry charged through the smoke of the magic crystal cannons and charged forward. At this moment, the sound of the Type 95 firing rang out. Tongues of fire spat out, and all of them were aimed at the target. 222. 3 consecutive sounds rang out, and the cavalry in the distance rolled on the ground along with their horses. The former obstructed the latter, trampling on each other, and instantly turned into a pile of meat paste. "Continue charging," someone in the cavalry formation roared. Following that, a few mortals with glowing hands rode their horses to the front line, charging impulsively to the front. They were experts who had grasped martial souls and battle aura. The martial souls and astral walls they had condensed were enough to block the attacks of the 95th style. As a result, the front line continued to push forward, and in the blink of an eye, they were already within 100 meters. The 95th style could kill mortals, but its lethality was greatly reduced against Heavenly Realm and Sacred Realm experts. Qianfeng raised his sword and roared angrily, "They're here. Charge with me." The armored demon camp and the high-level demon cavalry camp charged forward together. The speed of the armored demons was not inferior to the speed of the cavalry. They waved their battle axes and charged into the enemy's formation like a high-speed spinning steel top. Following that, the cavalry camp charged forward. There were flashes of swords and shadows, and blood splattered everywhere. This night was destined to be extraordinary. "Lin General, the demon army has already advanced." Fengxi's eyes were burning with passion as he said, "But there is no one to cover their flank. The Black Lava Lords are densely packed. It seems that the 50,000 vanguard soldiers are here, and there might be more behind. We can't just watch like this, can we?" "We can't." Lin Muyu mounted treading snow, and pulled out her Xianyuan sword. She ordered loudly, "Cavalry of the Valiant Dragon Legion, attack with me. Attack from the enemy's flank." Treading snow was very fast, and she left in a cloud of dust. Fengxi and Su Jiantao looked at each other, and could not help but laugh out loud. They urged their horses and led tens of thousands of cavalrymen to charge out with Lin Muyu. They laughed for no other reason than to follow an unparalleled famous general on the battlefield. They had no regrets in their lives. Lin Muyu charged the fastest, and the people coming toward her were also very strong. They were two people with sacred realm cultivation, and their spears were even burning with king's fighting flames. There's a fat piece of meat, kill him. The two sacred realm experts urged their horses forward, and the spears in their hands stabbed left and right like the stings of two scorpions. However, their speed was too slow in Lin Muyu's eyes. She swept her Xianyuan sword to the right with all her might to block, and with a loud clang, the spear was forcibly broken. Her sharp sword trembled in the air, and a sword flower bloomed on the other party's neck. Her left hand grabbed the white blade, and she suddenly flipped over to clamp the other party's spear under her armpit. She suddenly raised it up, and the power in her left palm was vast and mighty. She struck the other party's heart with a swift and violent chaos of the common life, directly shattering the battle armor. Puffed! The sacred realm expert spat out a mouthful of blood in the air, and lay straight on the cold ground. In just one round, Lin Muyu had killed two generals in a row. She raised her Xianyuan sword horizontally, and with a piercingly cold flame, Lin Muyu urged her horse forward at high speed. At the same time, she opened her left hand, and a golden gourd wall condensed in front of her. She knocked away the opponent's cavalry with a loud bang, and the Xianyuan sword swept all the way. Its lethality was astonishing, and it felt like she was fighting against 1,000 men alone. At this moment, probably no one in the Black Rock army could stop her. At the back, Su Jiantao and Feng Shi cheered in their hearts. They quickly urged their horses to keep up with Lin Muyu's speed, and led the cavalry of the Longdan army camp to charge forward and fight with the opponent's cavalry formation. It was clear who had the upper hand. The army of the Blackstone Empire had not fought for a long time, and even their usual training was rather sloppy. On the other hand, the Longdan army camp was well equipped and well trained, and their hacking speed was extremely fast. After both parties charged at each other, the Longdan army camp was almost unscathed, while the cavalry of the Black Rock army was greatly damaged. At this moment, the drums at the back of the Black Rock army shook the heavens, and another group of people charged out from the side of the forest. It was Wei Chao's 20,000-strong Longdan army camp. In an instant, the entire vanguard camp of the Black Rock army was in a mess. In front of them were Lin Muyu, the 1st Demon Camp, the Qianfeng Cavalry Regiment, and other strong enemies. At the back, Wei Chou had appeared. It was difficult for them to dismount, and their formation began to weaken and collapse. Hold on. Continue to charge. At the back, a person wearing captaincy's armor stood on the war chariot. It was the general of the vanguard, Lu Liang. He raised his sword high and shouted in a low voice, "Lord Commander's main army is about to arrive. Charge! All of you are brave warriors of the Blackstone Empire. How can you allow our country to be invaded by bandits? Kill them!" Under Lu Liang's command, the heavy shield bearers, spear bearers, and archers at the back of the cavalry battalion moved forward together, pushing the battle line forward. In the distance, the northern pass was lit up in flames. It seemed to be a signal that Longxi's main army was about to arrive. Crack! The Xianyuan sword swept across and cut an enemy general in half at the waist. Blood splattered everywhere. Lin Muyu relied on the wall of the gourd to block the blood. Without stopping, she turned around and used her sharp sword to kill another 2 spear bearers. Corpses were everywhere. There were no longer any enemies around Lin Muyu. Even the Black Rock Army cavalry immediately avoided Lin Muyu when they saw her. They went to look for Su Jiantao, Feng Shi and Situ Sun to fight. "Lin General." Su Jiantao urged his horse over. He was panting heavily, and his helmet was covered in blood. There was also a sword mark on it. "Are you injured?" Lin Muyu was stunned. "No." Su Jiantao grinned. "I was just knocked by a knight's long sword." "Lin General, look at the fire on the northern pass. Is it Longxi's main army?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. Her spirit pulse technique had already sensed the dense auras rushing over from 20 miles away. It seemed like Longxi didn't plan to go all out in the battle at the northern gate from the start, but it seemed like there was someone behind Longxi's back giving him advice. Otherwise, Longxi wouldn't have taken advantage of the time when the Great Qin Empire's army was exhausted to attack. Looking at the three armies fighting bravely, Lin Muyu was worried. At this time, although the Longdan army camp and the Devil army were fighting bravely, it did not mean that the Qin Empire had the upper hand. In fact, after 3 days of continuous travel, the army had long been exhausted. The bravery in front of them was more like the last radiance of the setting sun. Everyone needed rest. Feng Zhanlin, Feng Zhanhai, Nangong Lai and other cultivators were fine. They were very strong, so it did not matter if they did not sleep or rest. However, ordinary people were different. If Longxi's 250,000 main army really came, I'm afraid we can't resist. Su Jiantao said meaningfully. Among the 250,000 people in Longxi's army, 50,000 of them are practitioners of the former Thunder Flame sect. Their strength can't be underestimated. What's more, they are waiting for us to exhaust ourselves. If nearly 80,000 cavalrymen charge at us, we will not have enough artillery shells. I'm afraid our camp will be greatly threatened. Lin Muyu pondered and said, I see. You immediately lead the army to resist the enemy's attack. I will go back and discuss it. Yes. With a sudden pull on the reins, Lin Muyu carried a bloody longsword and led dozens of guards back to the camp. The moment they entered the gate, the three beauties, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao, came forward. Tang Xiaoxi said with extreme displeasure, Mu, why did you personally go into battle again? I already said you are the marshal, the commander of the three armies. How can you personally go into battle? I won't do it next time. I still have important things to do. You three don't stop me. Where is Ding Shi? Marshal Ding is busy at the military supplies department. Oh, I'll be right there. Do you want to come? Oh. Dozens of cavalries went straight to the military supplies department, but when Lin Muyu opened the curtain and walked in, she saw Ding Shi holding a thin pancake in his mouth, waving a pen and drawing on a map. He seemed to be reviewing the storage of military rations. The sounds of killing outside were deafening, but he did not seem to care at all. Because he was the commander of the military supplies department, he could leave the killing outside to Lin Muyu, Qianfeng, and the others. Ah, Lin General. Your Highness. Why are you here? Ding Shi stood up and cupped his fists. This subordinate greets your Highness. Qin Yin smiled. Dispense with the formalities, the marshal is looking for you. Chapter 1154. Oh. Ding Shi looked at Lin Muyu with an inquiring gaze and said, I will never go to see those island pirates again. Last time they almost took off my pants because of a disagreement. I would rather die than be humiliated. Do as you see fit. The three beauties couldn't help but laugh. Lin Muyu said, Don't worry about this, I'm here for another matter. 3 days ago, I remember that Marshal Ding Shi's people bribed the official registrar of Thousand Mountain City through a secret channel. Now we need this person. Oh. For what? Immediately write a letter to this person and have him make a false report to Longxi, saying that the Southern Pirate Army suddenly launched a sneak attack on Thousand Mountain City, and that the situation is critical. Let Longxi immediately lead the main force back to support. Oh. Ding Shi narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, It seems that the situation on the battlefield isn't very favorable. Marshal actually used such a disgraceful strategy of false report. It seems that there really is no other way. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. After we set foot on the land of the celestial pole continent, which strategy has been glorious. Quickly go and do your work. This letter of yours will determine the life and death of many people. Yes, this subordinate will do it immediately. When the messenger bird flew south, Lin Muyu's heart also relaxed a little. It would only take half a day for the messenger bird to reach Thousand Mountain City, and the false report from Thousand Mountain City would reach Longxi in less than 3 hours. After dawn, it was likely that Longxi's army would return to support. When they returned to the battlefield again, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Chu Yao were also accompanying them. In the distance, Si Kongyao and Lu Bai returned with bloody swords. They seemed a little tired, and their faces were full of soot and blood. Yao, are you okay? Lin Muyu rode forward and asked. I'm fine. Si Kongyao wiped her face and looked at the bloodstains on her hands. She smiled and said, Don't worry, it's someone else's blood. However, Our forces have been severely depleted. Big brother you, how long will this night raid last? Look, there are endless reinforcements from the Black Lava Army coming from the northern pass. I'm afraid the battle will last till daybreak. Liu Bai said. Lin General, change the MO army. I saw. Many people from the first demon camp and the cavalry camp had died. Even Marshal Qianfeng was wounded. Yes. Lin Wuyu had been wanting to do this for a long time. She turned to the generals at the side of the platform and said, Yan, Chen Xiaoli, lead your troops and replace the demon troops. Yes, big brother. Yes, Marshal. The two of them galloped away. In the blink of an eye, the drums rumbled and nearly 50,000 men and horses charged forward. In fact, there was only one official road from the northern pass to the Qin army camp. The battlefield was in the forests and plains on both sides of the official road. The space was not very big. 50,000 men on their side and 50,000 on the enemy's side were fighting each other. It was just a war of attrition. No matter how many people there were, they would not be able to form a formation. It was a waste. Not long after, the replacement Qianfeng returned. As expected, there was a scar on his handsome face. Although it was very shallow, it was still very clear. Qianfeng, are your injuries serious? Lin Wuyu asked. Qianfeng shook his head and smiled. It's just a scratch. Thank you for your concern. But why did you replace us? Haven't our 8 Desolation Province troops killed enough? You guys rest first. Don't worry. Lin Wuyu pointed to the flames above the northern pass and said, Look, Longshi's reinforcements are coming. We have to replace them. Lead the troops to heal and rest first. Yes. Qianfeng ordered his deputies. You guys take your troops to rest and heal. I will stay here to watch the battle. Yes, Commander. A group of high-level demon generals left. The other armored demons glared at Lin Wuyu, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. They did not know what to say and just left. The northern pass is a fortress built on a mountain pass. Attacking it by force is a stupid thing to do. Moreover, there are 4 magic crystal cannons on top of the fortress. Qianfeng looked from afar and said, Marshal, how do you plan to attack the northern pass? We'll talk about it after tonight's battle. Lin Wuyu narrowed her eyes. Then the army will rest for 2 days before fighting again. Yes, our army does need to rest. Qianfeng frowned. The 3 armies have more than enough power to charge, but not enough stamina. This is not a good thing. On the side, Dingxi said, if we can seize the northern pass as soon as possible, we can change from defense to offense, from passivity to initiative. Has Marshal ever thought of sending the giant flying snake to fight? Giant flying snake? Lin Wuyu could not help laughing. That giant's attack does not distinguish between friend and foe. Not to mention accidental injuries, once the giant flying snake is sent to fight, the northern pass will be smashed to pieces. There's no point in seizing it. Let's think about it at length. Yes. After a night of fighting, blood flowed like a river outside the northern pass. The next morning, the snow stopped, and to everyone's surprise, the dark clouds of demon chi in the sky dispersed a little, allowing the sun to shine. Strands of golden light shone on the snowy ground, illuminating the bloodstains on the battlefield, and the corpses that had yet to be dragged away. The air was filled with the nauseating smell of blood. Some starving goshawks circled in the air, looking for opportunities to swoop down and peck at the corpses. In the distance, the northern pass gate was closed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The northern wind made the marshal's flag flutter, and the flag-bearer holding the flag was almost unable to hold it. Let me do it. Wei Chou took the battle flag with one hand and held it steadily. He was born with great strength in his arms, and was more than enough to be a flag-bearer. Lin Wuyu's cloak was stained with blood, and there were several holes pierced by spears, but she did not have time to change it. She urged her horse to lead the people on the battlefield. The battlefield had to be cleaned up as soon as possible, otherwise these corpses would cause a plague. The corpse collection team is too slow. Lin Wuyu frowned, saying, General Sun, pick 20,000 strong young men from the Longdan army camp to help bury the corpses and clean up the battlefield. Yes, my lord. Situ Sun turned and left. Lin Wuyu continued to pass through the pile of corpses on the battlefield. Behind her, Dingxi said, Lin General, In last night's battle, the Black Rock Army mobilized a total of 130,000 people, of which more than 75,000 died in battle. Our army mobilized a total of 110,000 people, of which more than 13,000 died and 30,000 were injured. More than 5,000 magic crystal cannons and 30,000 magic crystal crossbows were used up. The consumption of medicine in the spiritual medicine department is extremely great. Miss Chu Yao has already come to the military supplies department 3 times, but this general really can't get any medicine. Ask Si Kongyao about the medicine. Let her and Lu Bai think of a way to solve it. Yes. Ding Shi continued. I've already received the latest news. Longxi has led 150,000 troops back to Thousand Mountain City to reinforce them. Currently, there are at most 50 to 60,000 troops stationed at the northern pass. Lin Muyu thought for a moment, then said, Wei Chou, order the front army to set up the cannon formation, then send a group of 5,000 people to the northern pass to challenge them. If they come, run, and lure them to attack our camp. Yes. Lin Muyu said again, Marshal Ding Shi, pay close attention to the situation in Thousand Mountain City. Once Long Shi leads his army out of the city again, immediately send out a false report through your spy. I want to torture Long Shi and his Black Lava army to the point that they can't sleep or rest in 2 days. Ding Shi nodded. Having an opponent like Marshal is really bloody bad luck. Lin Muyu glanced at him. That's because I have a good helper like you. Oh right. Will there be any consequences for making a false report last night? Of course there will be. Ding Shi said. Given Long Shi's temper, he will definitely fly into a rage and thoroughly investigate who released the false report. But Lin General, don't worry, my men are very clean, they won't be found out. I have already arranged a scapegoat. Lin Muyu smiled. That's great. Oh right, don't throw away the Black Rock Army's flags and armor that we obtained from cleaning up the battlefield. Wash them and dry them, they will be of great use in 2 days. The corners of Ding Shi's mouth rose. I understand. I am already making preparations. Even the flags of the various camps have been distributed. Marshal, don't worry. Marshal Ding, I'm really lucky to have a colleague like you. Haha, it's the same for me. To be able to work with Lin General is a great blessing in my life. In the past, Ding Shi's colleagues were idiots like Marquis Man Ning and young Master Qin Huan who would only delay matters. Now that he was working with wise and far-sighted people like Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, Qian Feng, Su Jiantao and Wei Chou, he naturally felt very carefree. Damn it, it's a false report. In Thousand Mountain City, Longshi's face was full of anger. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling, his gaze cold. Zhou Ziang said respectfully, Commander, I have already convinced the pirates on the islands to not attack Thousand Mountain City. This request for reinforcements is definitely a false report. But the pirates also did not attack the Qin bandits' camp overnight. Longxi looked at him with a burning gaze. Zhou Ziang frowned. The bandits are not trustworthy. They are only afraid of the strength of the rebel army. But now, there are only a few tens of thousands of soldiers defending the northern pass. They will not be able to resist the hundreds of thousands of Qin soldiers. I believe that the most important thing is to immediately send a large number of soldiers to guard the northern pass. When the Imperial Army of the Huiyuan Province and Tianji Province attack Shiping City together, we will attack Lin Muyu's troops from both the front and the back. Sir, are you so sure that Feng Jixing cannot defend Shiping City? Humph. Our 2 armies have a total of 400,000 elites, while Feng Jixing only has a mere 150,000 veterans. What does he have to resist Marshal Chen Yu's army? If that's the case, Longxi said lightly, you are the advisor sent by His Majesty. I will listen to you. Pass down my order. After lunch, immediately reinforce the northern pass at full speed. No mistakes. Yes. In the afternoon, a precious ray of gentle sunlight shone on the earth. The northern gate of Qianshan City opened, and a dense mix of infantry and cavalry rushed out of the city. They had to reinforce the northern pass within a day. It was a distance of 200 miles. They should be able to reach it in one night. But Longxi and Zhou Ziang did not know that a strong enemy was already waiting for them in the distance. Late at night, the lights in the marshal's tent of the Qin army were still not extinguished. Lin Muyu carefully looked through the military intelligence, and then handed it to Ding Shi. Long Shi is really simple-minded. He left the city again so soon. Long Shi's 150,000 elites are less than 4 hours away from us. You know what to do. Ding Shi smiled slightly. I will write a letter to the pirates and tell them that Qianshan City is empty. Let them immediately attack Qianshan City at full speed. No. Lin Muyu waved her hand and said, this will make them suspicious. You have to write it like this. Say that Long Shi's 200,000 troops attacked our camp and caused great damage to our army. Let the pirates immediately attack from the rear and reinforce our army. Write a letter asking for help and promise. In this way, those despicable and shameless pirates will be relieved to attack Qianshan City instead of reinforcing us. Ding Shi looked deeply at Lin Muyu and said, the marshal's ability to attack people's minds has reached a frightening level. Lin Muyu glanced at him. I like the days of Xiaoyao with a few old friends drinking and admiring the moon all day. Do you think I want to be tortured every day and wake up often at night? I understand. I will do it now. Well, be quick. Yes. Chapter 1155. On the 6th of January, the 140,000 South Sea pirates arrived at Thousand Mountain City and bribed the spies in the city to attack Thousand Mountain City. After receiving the news, Long Shi led the exhausted 70,000 Black Lava Army cavalrymen back in the starry night. Together with Zhou Ziyang, they destroyed the pirate army, beheaded nearly 40,000 people, and captured nearly 20,000 people. But there were still 80,000 pirates who escaped and returned to the West Blue. The entire Thousand Mountain City was shrouded in the smell of blood. Snow began to fall from the sky again, and the cold morning wind made people shiver. However, Long Shi stood numbly on the ground floor of the Great Hall of Thousand Mountain City, looking down at the city. His face was pale. Perhaps it was because he was tired, or perhaps it was because it was difficult to deal with. But his spirit was somewhat dispirited. Commander. Zhou Ziyang's robe was stained with blood as he walked over the snow. Those captives, how do we deal with them? Kill. Long Shi's eyes were filled with hatred as he said, that bastard Lin Muyu. Is he toying with my 150,000 strong army like monkeys? Using this group of untrustworthy pirates to hold us back, making me exhausted, humph. I will remember this debt. Sooner or later I will settle it with him. Zhou Ziyang. Your subordinate is here. Commander, please give your orders. Immediately use the torture methods of the Blackstone Empire and execute these pirates on both sides of the official road. Let the whole world know the fate of those who oppose me, Long Shi. Yes. Zhou Ziyang's face was filled with shock. The stabbing was a very terrifying punishment. Using a sharp and strong wooden stick to pierce through the body, using gravity to slowly slide down, and finally the stick will pierce through the person's body, coming out from the mouth or head. This process is very cruel and painful. At least a day, at most a few days, the person being executed will taste the pain and die. Ever since Yangshang established the kingdom of Shang, these punishments have been replaced by beheading. Zhou Ziyang never thought that Long Shi would actually use this kind of torture again. One could imagine what would happen if the common people saw the people struggling on the wooden thorns on both sides of the official road. Although this could make Long Shi's prestige spread throughout the world, it would also make the common people more afraid of him. Zhou Ziyang nodded. He knew why Long Shi did this. Originally, Long Shi was the leader of the Thunder Flame sect. He led the sect to serve the empire's Emperor Shi Yuan, but after being defeated by Yangshang's Protoss army, Shi Yuan selfishly ascended, leaving Long Shi as the general of the defeated army. In fact, Long Shi was the general of the defeated army and tasted humiliation. Now he has become the commander of the Blackstone Empire, the owner of the Blackstone Empire, but was played around in circles by Lin Muyu pirates. His heart must be very heavy. Commander, 3 of these prisoners are the leaders of the major pirate groups. These 3 people have a strong appeal. Do you want to keep them alive? No, don't. Long Shi's face was full of ruthlessness. Use the rat punishment on them. I want to watch the execution in person. After the execution, send their bodies to Lin Muyu. Yes. In the secret room below the castle, the 3 pirate leaders were gagged and tied to 3 wooden boards in a lying posture. Long Shi, dressed in golden armor, walked in, his eyes indifferent, and said, "Execute." "Yes, my lord." Several soldiers quickly stripped off the clothes of these pirates, revealing their bellies, and then someone came over with an iron bucket. A group of rats were squeaking in the iron bucket. They put the iron bucket upside down on the exposed bellies of the pirates, and then said, "Bring charcoal." Several pieces of red-hot coal were placed at the bottom of the iron bucket, and suddenly the high temperature continued to go down. The nature of rats is timid and cruel. Once they are threatened with death, they will desperately escape. Holes are naturally the first choice, and at this time, the only direction to hole is the flesh and blood below. So the rats crazily pulled the belly of the pirates. The 3 pirates trembled in pain and their faces were full of sweat, but they couldn't scream. Blood flowed down the edge of the iron bucket and dripped on the ground. Zhou Ziang was stunned. This scene was not like a human being. The Longxi in front of him is no longer a human, but a devil. Only a devil will carry out this inhumane punishment. However, Longxi looked indifferently at the 3 pirates slowly dying. "Zhou Ziang-sama, you don't look very good," he said. Zhou Ziang's body trembled slightly and said, This subordinate is just a weak scholar. I have never seen such a bloody scene, so naturally I am a little uncomfortable." "Is that so?" Longxi smiled slightly. "But you are now a military advisor, a soldier. You should get used to everything in front of you. Killing will become your instinct. You will lead the people to carry out the assassination outside the city." "But commander." "But what?" Zhou Ziang said with a deep gaze. "If I am not wrong, Lin Muyu should be attacking the northern pass. The pirates are restraining the main force of the Black Lava Army, so Lin Muyu will definitely take the opportunity to attack the northern pass. Once the northern pass falls, the entire Thousand Mountain City will be exposed to Lin Muyu's army without any barriers. At that time, it will be too late to regret." "Is that so?" Longxi laughed loudly, and a faint purple demonic aura suddenly appeared around his body. Outside the secret room, rumbling sounds of thunder could be heard, and a large amount of demonic aura overflowed. Swoosh! A ball of purple energy descended from the sky, heading straight for the main hall. A few guards were shocked. "What the hell is this?" "Block it." Their gold-plated shields blocked the door, but how could they block it? Pung! The guards were immediately smashed into pieces, and the ball of demonic aura frantically searched for a target to recognize as its master. Finally, after piercing through a few stone walls, it found that person. It was Longxi. "Demonic body," Longxi laughed wildly. "Come, my demonic body, I have been waiting for you." Buzz. The demonic energy floated into Longxi's body like a person, and merged with him. When the demonic body completely entered his body, Longxi opened his eyes, and his gaze became increasingly fierce. Zhou Ziang was so scared that he didn't say a word. After obtaining the demonic body, Longxi seemed to have changed into a different person. The so-called demon god Ascension was actually using his remaining conscience to exchange for super strong power. Filet and Jin Chong had already verified this point. The demonic aura swept in all directions, and everyone was pushed back again and again. Longxi's body slowly flew up, accepting the baptism of demonic aura in the air. Countless electric lights and fiery demonic shadows constantly passed through his body, and Longxi's expression actually looked like he was enjoying it very much. He slowly opened his arms and his eyes were cold. "Come share this world with me, and kill all those who betray me." Boom! A blazing flame descended from the sky, and turned into the shape of a scroll. It was the Heavenly Book of Demon Sealing. Light flowed under the Heavenly Book, and slowly converged into a half-human figure, which somewhat resembled Chu Xingyun. He said in a deep voice, "Longxi, today, I bestow upon you the demonic body of a first-tier mid-level demonic god, and confer upon you the title of Demon God of Annihilation. I hope that you will overturn the seas and rivers in this world, and kill all those hypocritical villains who claim to be righteous, and attain the demonic path." Longxi slowly knelt down, his eyes full of flames, and smiled. "Many thanks for the bestowment, demonic god. This subordinate will do his best to serve the demonic world." Whoosh! The flame dissipated, and the Heavenly Book of Demon Sealing also turned into a beam of light that shot into the sky. Chu Xingyun's figure rapidly disappeared, leaving only a mid-level demonic god, Longxi, in the secret chamber. His whole body was emitting a ruthless and evil aura. He smiled and said, "Now that I am already a mid-level demonic god, and have attained the demonic path, military counselor, will you continue to be loyal to me?" Zhou Ziang's body slightly trembled and his knees went weak. He suddenly knelt down and said, "This subordinate is willing to serve the commander. Go and execute the assassination. Immediately dispatch the troops in the afternoon, and lead all 80,000 cavalrymen to reinforce the northern fortress. I will let Lin Muyu know how to write the word death." Yes. At the same time, the cannons at the northern fortress resounded again and again. Wei Chou led the Longdan army camp and officially began to storm the fortress. On the mountain range next to the northern fortress, flags were fluttering. Lin Muyu led Situ Sun, Situ Shui, Si Kongyao, and Su Jiantao to the top of the mountain range. From there, they could already see the panoramic view of the inside of the northern fortress. The northern fortress was only a small city, and it could not accommodate 70 to 80,000 men. Therefore, most of the soldiers guarding the northern fortress were stationed on the flat ground inside the northern fortress. It was a valley with hills that were dozens of meters high on both sides, and a flat ground that was hundreds of meters wide in the middle. That is the very famous 10-mile winding valley. Si Kongyao pursed her red lips and said, "Big brother, many battles have happened there. Most of the wars between the Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire started in the 10-mile winding valley." 10-mile winding valley. 10-mile winding valley. Lin Muyu repeated it twice, and her eyes lit up. "Send my order to Wei Chou. Don't attack too fiercely. We must give Longxi enough time to reinforce." Yes. At this moment, dark clouds rolled across the horizon. The light of the heavenly tome of demon ceiling enveloped the sky, and demonic characters floated across the horizon. This time, no demonic shadow spoke. Lin Muyu frowned and said, "What do those demonic characters mean?" "They are all ancient characters," the torch dragon said. At the side, the torch dragon said, "Chief, the main meaning of this passage is that a human has obtained the demonic body of a mid-god, and has become one of the demonic gods listed in the demonic book. His name is Longxi and he comes from the celestial pole continent." Longxi. Lin Muyu was stunned and said, "Longxi actually obtained a demonic body?" "Yes." Qin Yin's eyes were as clear as water. She said, "Big brother you, if we plan to fight in the 10-mile winding valley, we need more experts to fight against Longxi, who has just become a demonic god. I'll send the order to Feng Zhanlin and Wei Chou to come over." "Yes." Lin Muyu frowned. "Ask Scholar Ling to come over too. We need the power of the heavenly tome to fight against Longxi." Yes. In the distance, the siege was ongoing. Under the bombardment of the magic crystal cannons, the two outer walls of the northern pass had been turned into dust. Currently, a large number of troops were fighting under the walls, and the outcome was very clear. However, Lin Muyu felt as if there was a mountain pressing down on her heart. Even the heavens were helping the bad guys. This was already the third demonic god, but no righteous god that represented the righteousness of heaven and earth had appeared. Chapter 1156. As dusk approached, a dense horde of Black Lava Army cavalry appeared on the plains in the south. They were extremely fast, but the northern pass had already fallen. Currently, a large number of Longdan Army camp troops had started to enter the 10-mile meandering valley. On horseback, Zhou Ziang was on the verge of vomiting. He endured the discomfort and said, "Commander, since the Qin traders have already seized the northern pass, why don't we set up camp here and block the exit of the northern pass? We will force the Qin traders to fight us on the plains. Their rations will not last long. As long as we hold on until the arrival of the 100,000 infantries, they will definitely be defeated. I am here to kill the traitors, not to watch the traitors die." The demonic aura in Longxi's eyes intensified. He laughed and said, "I, Longxi, have 80,000 steel cavalry, will not be afraid of a motley crew. Charge in, kill the traitors in the 10-mile meandering valley, and take back the northern pass." "Commander," Zhou Ziang loudly said. The 10-mile meandering valley is not suitable for a cavalry charge. On the contrary, it is advantageous to the traders. Commander, please consider carefully. There is no need to say any more. I want to fight Lin Muyu in the 10-mile meandering valley. Zhou Ziang couldn't dissuade Long Shi and he didn't dare to. After all, the demon god Long Shi obtained was a first-tier mid-god. His strength was a notch higher than Felix's. If Zhou Ziang really provoked Long Shi, it wouldn't be impossible for Long Shi to kill Zhou Ziang with a single sword strike. Perhaps, even Yang Shang would have to fear this person. Dense sounds of horse hooves could be heard from the horizon. Even the entire mountain range was trembling. The sound of 80,000 steel cavalry marching together was extremely shocking. On the hillside, Wei Chou looked into the distance and said, "My lord, they are here. Let them in." Lin Muyu's eyes were like torches. Send orders to Qianfeng's first demon camp and giant flying snakes to prepare for battle. Longdan army camp steel cavalry to prepare. We must block the 10-mile meandering valley and not let them take back the northern pass. Yes. Lin Muyu continued. Raise the martial and king flags. Tell the Black Lava army that Xiao Yin and I will be waiting for them here. Ah. Si Kongyao was taken aback. Big brother, won't that attract Longxi to come over and start a massacre? That's exactly what we have to do. Otherwise, if a mid-god like Longxi were to charge into the valley, our army wouldn't be able to stop him. Lin Muyu glanced at the crowd and said, Only we are worthy to be Longxi's opponents. Are you all afraid? Don't worry, we have the advantage in numbers. Feng Zhanlin laughed. Lin Muyu also laughed and said, The enemy is strong while I am weak. At this time we are all mortals. I have let everyone down by fighting a god with my mortal body. Don't say that, Lin General. Nangonglai said. No one has thought of the collapse of the 6 realms. Naturally, Lin General doesn't know either. It is already our fortune that you can take us out of the 64 domains. Now, everyone in the Dragon League is willing to follow you, uphold justice, and fight for the common people. This can be considered as us truly fulfilling what a former god should do. Yes, let's prepare for war. Yes. Following the sound of horse hooves, the densely packed Black Lava army entered the 10-mile zigzag valley like a long black snake. On the other hand, the dark blue armors and flags of the first demon camp and the brave dragon camp connected together like a dark blue shield. A fierce battle was inevitable. They are coming. Qinin pulled out the Donghua sword with a clang and looked into the distance. It was a group of Black Lava army cavalry. They were heading straight for the flag of the Qin Empire. They were going to take the flags. Tang Xiaoxi also slowly pulled out the Zhurong sacred fire sword. Her eyes were full of fighting spirit. This group of enemies were not ordinary people, but a group of cultivators with high cultivation. Most of them were cultivators of the original Thunder Flame sect. Now they were weakened by the principal power, but their strength was still maintained at the level of Earth Realm, Heaven Realm, and even Holy Realm. They were much stronger than ordinary soldiers. Shield formation. At Lin Muyu's order, Feng Zhanlin personally carried the shield and led the Dragon League to the front. Although there were only about 100 people on the hillside, each of them was a master from the Qin Empire. Candle Dragon and Fuzhu, take people to protect Wei Chou. The rest of you, follow me to face the enemy. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. She carried the Xian Yuan sword and rushed forward like an arrow. What greeted her was a chaos of the common people. Suddenly, in the celestial body of all living things, 2 cavalrymen were smashed into pieces. Buzz. The Donghua sword trembled slightly, and the celestial dragon crystal broke through the air. Qinin easily killed 7 or 8 people with one slash. Tang Xiaoxi guarded on one side. Zhurong's sacred fire sword fell from the air and slashed out a dazzling sword chi, killing 3 to 5 people that Qinin did not kill. Candle Dragon screamed. Nangong Lai Situ Sun, and the others roared. On the hillside, there were flashes of blades and shadows of swords. The battle was already a mess. With the Xian Yuan sword in hand, Lin Muyu kept the invisible elephant spell and the spiritual pulse spell exploring. The strongest opponent still had not appeared. Longxi had suppressed his divine power, so Lin Muyu's spiritual pulse spell could not sense him. After all, there was a great disparity in strength. so it was normal that she could not sense him. However, Wei Chou had already sent people to form a shield formation. The iron shields all contained stalactite elements, so it was impossible to break the void on this hillside. So where was Longxi? Crack. At the same time that the Xian Yuan sword cut a holy master cavalryman in half, a piercingly cold chi suddenly fell from the sky behind. It was Longxi. He actually chose to launch a surprise attack from the sky. The sword chi, surrounded by cold devil chi, went straight for Qin Yin. Xiaoyin dodge. Tang Xiaoxi was the closest and could protect Qin Yin the best. Zhu Rong's sacred fire sword swept past from the side, going straight for Longxi's body. However, his speed was far inferior to Longxi's. Longxi immediately changed his move in midair. He retracted his sword that was going for Qin Yin, and turned to slash at Tang Xiaoxi with a ferocious look. The moment Longxi's sword approached, Tang Xiaoxi already knew that she was no match for him. Gritting her teeth, she let out a low growl. The flames around her exploded, and she entered the demon god state. Her 9 tails swayed behind her graceful figure, and Zhu Rong's sacred fire sword slashed at Longxi. Bang! The moment the two swords collided, Tang Xiaoxi's blood surged. She felt a sweetness in her throat, and an arrow of blood shot out of her mouth. Die! Longxi's attack was swift, and the second sword stabbed at Tang Xiaoxi's delicate body. There was no way Tang Xiaoxi could block this attack. Everyone was shocked. Just how strong was this intermediate demon god? Even someone as strong as Tang Xiaoxi couldn't withstand a single blow from the demon god? Buzz! Qin Yin appeared at Tang Xiaoxi's side almost instantly, using her body to block Tang Xiaoxi. At the same time, the Donghua sword shone brightly. Shi Yan's 7 strikes of mercy. The power of the law of light burst out in an instant, and even 4 golden wings appeared behind Qin Yin. However, she didn't have enough divine power to form 4 wings. Longxi's sword fell and directly knocked away the Donghua sword, but he was also shaken to a halt for a few seconds. When he looked again, Qin Yin had already disappeared into the crowd with Tang Xiaoxi in her arms, and Lin Muyu came with a sword in her hand. Lin Muyu. Longxi hadn't seen Lin Muyu before, but he could tell from her aura that she was the legendary person. Lin Muyu activated the invisible elephant art. With a shout, the Xianyuan sword blasted at Longxi with the dark energy of the 6 luminaries' heavenly tribulation. Go to hell! Longxi laughed loudly, showing his arrogance. His long sword blasted on the Xianyuan sword with a magnificent brilliance. In an instant, it was obvious who was superior. Lin Muyu was shaken so much that the perlicue between her thumb and index finger bled. Her figure was crushed by Longxi's aura and fell back. She hit a pine tree heavily and broke it in half. Everyone was shocked. At this time, a beam of light flew out from the crowd and reached Longxi's chest in an instant. It was the sun shooting arrow. Bang! The arrow turned into a spiritual light and exploded in front of Longxi's chest. Longxi trembled all over and felt a faint pain. He turned his eyes to Wei Chou. Wei Chou was extremely fast. In an instant, he shot 3 arrows accurately and violently, splashing on Longxi's protective upstanding chi and demonic body. Even streams of demonic aura began to fly, which was a sign that the demonic body was damaged. Brat, you're courting death. Longxi raised his long sword. Wrapped in demonic aura, he charged at Wei Chou. Block it for me. Situ Sun bellowed. He and Qin Yan, one on the left and one on the right, attacked with their long swords. First appearance of starlight and the light of the dragon scale armor martial soul surged in the air. However, before they could touch Longxi's true body, they were already repelled by the power of the domain formed by the demonic aura around Longxi. The two of them vomited blood and fell to the ground, heavily injured. Feng Zhanlin leaped forward and swept his iron shield. Retreat! Longxi punched out and Feng Zhanlin's iron shield instantly shattered. He vomited blood and fell to the ground. Wei Chou shot another 3 arrows consecutively. However, he was unable to pierce through Longxi's shield. After all, Wei Chou's cultivation was no longer as good as before. He was unable to fully unleash the power of the Hui Bao. Buzz! The long sword attacked like a venomous snake. Longxi had already used his domain to control Wei Chou's body, making it impossible for him to move. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cave. The feeling of impending death was incomparably terrifying. Protect Wei Chou. A person pounced over. It was Ling Songhan, the former deputy domain master of the Mystic Heaven region. The sharp sword in his hand spun rapidly, bringing out streams of deep-sea energy. It was like a huge whirlpool, dispelling Longxi's demonic energy. However, although Ling Songhan was strong, he was not as strong as Longxi. Pooh! The long sword pierced through the energy layer and pierced Ling Songhan's abdomen. Songhan! Nangong Lai screamed hysterically. The long sword fiercely slashed at the side of Longxi's body. Above, Zhulong waved his two swords and struck Longxi's back. Wei Chao's heart trembled slightly. He drew his bow and shot an arrow at Longxi's face. Bang bang bang. With 3 loud bangs, Longxi's body spun rapidly and rolled along the snow. However, he was only injured but not killed. He suddenly swung his long sword. An invisible sword energy swept out. More Dragon League experts fell to the ground. Stop him! Nangong Lai looked at Ling Songhan, who had fallen to the ground and died. That was his close friend of many years. Nangong Lai never thought that someone as strong as Ling Songhan would die. Tears flowed from his eyes. Kill him, revenge, revenge. Longxi didn't seem to want to retreat. He moved like a bolt of lightning. His long sword flashed twice, and another 2 Sacred Realm experts fell to the ground. However, when Longxi waved his arm for the 3rd time, a blood-red energy suddenly wrapped his palm. From above, a powerful force came. Looking up, he saw Lin Muyu holding the Xianyuan sword with both hands and attacking fiercely. Blood refining the firmament. Chapter 1157. Boom. A wave of dark force that could incinerate everything rushed towards him. Facing Lin Muyu's heavenly blood-smelting blood, Longxi did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly used all his god power to block and swung his longsword, sweeping up the flying snow and withered leaves to meet the attack. Amidst the loud sound, both of their figures shook at the same time. This time Lin Muyu was not sent flying. This was enough to prove that Wei Chou, Zhulong, and the rest had injured Longxi's body. At the very least, they had caused great damage to his god power. However, Longxi's recovery speed was obviously faster than Lin Muyu's. His figure swept forward, and the demonic aura on his longsword surged. His face was full of a sinister smile. Die! Lin Muyu quickly retreated and suddenly opened her palm. The 7 luminaries' celestial sword broke through the air and slammed into Longxi's body. However, like a torrent crashing into a stone pillar, it was instantly dispersed by Longxi's god power. Everything in the world, listen to my command. As Lin Muyu closed her palms, the withered leaves and snow in the surrounding mountains buzzed and floated up. Their gravity had already been borrowed by Lin Muyu. As her palms fell, the power of mountains descended from the sky and blasted towards Longxi. Bang! The ground suddenly sank by nearly 2 meters, and the 2 black lava army cavalrymen behind Longxi were crushed into a pile of meat paste. Bastard! Longxi was furious. He had previously heard that Lin Muyu from the Shattered Cauldron realm was a genius. Now that he had seen this brat in person, he realized that this brat was actually able to deal with him with his divine heaven cultivation. How could this be? The blade flew forward and shattered the dragon blood shield with a crisp bang. He immediately swung his sword to block, but he could not block it at all. Longxi's speed was too fast. Pooh! The tip of his sword stabbed into Lin Muyu's shoulder. When it went in by about 3 centimeters, Longxi had no choice but to retract his sword. This was because a wind-piercing arrow was already flying towards his head. It was the Ho-I Bao again. As Longxi paused for a brief moment, Zhulong, Changliang, Dijiang and Golong attacked him from all directions, their palms glowing brightly. Longxi did not dare to underestimate them. He suddenly spun on the spot, his demonic energy turned into a storm, and the bodies of the 4 masters were also sucked into it. For a moment, lightning and thunder were heard unceasingly. Applause and sword strikes were heard. However, the auras of the 4 experts grew weaker and weaker. Even if they joined forces, they were still no match for Longxi. Lin Muyu was gasping for breath. The starlight in her palm was dense, and the sky was densely covered with clouds. The 7 glorious stars transformation was ready to be unleashed. Her face was ashen as she said, "All of you disperse." Zhulong and the others had been waiting for this sentence. The four of them transformed into 4 bolts of lightning and flew away. Whoosh! Wei Chou shot another arrow attack, and it was 3 consecutive shots. 3 sun-shooting arrows flew in front of Longxi almost at the same time. Longxi was shocked. He suddenly lowered his head to avoid an arrow, and then his hands grabbed in front of him like iron pincers, forcibly crushing the energy of 2 sun-shooting arrows. However, at the moment when Longxi grabbed the sun-shooting arrows, the starlight in the sky came crashing down. 7 glorious stars transformation. Moreover, this was a stellar transformation launched by Lin Muyu in the body of a mortal. The buzzing sound of space tearing and trembling came from behind Longxi. Obviously, he wanted to break the void and escape, but he couldn't. The surrounding field was disturbed by the magnetic field of the Zhongyan, and he couldn't penetrate the 4-dimensional space at all. Therefore, he had to raise his arm and condense a demon shield to resist the bombardment of the starlight. A series of explosions raged in front of him like purgatory. Lin Muyu raised his palm to the sky, guiding the attack of the power of the stars, but his face was covered with sweat, and blood kept flowing from his fingers. He was extremely weak. "Brother Yu." Qin Yin stood up from under a broken tree, with blood on her face. She looked at Lin Muyu and murmured, but he probably couldn't hear her. Tang Xiaoxi also stood up from the rubble, leaning on Zhu Rong's sacred fire sword. It was chaos in the distance. Almost all the masters of the Qin Empire worked together to kill Longxi, but it had little effect. Feng Zhanlin, Nangong Lai, and the others looked at everything in front of them with their mouths agape. Perhaps the only mortal in this world who could fight against God was Lin Muyu. However, Lin Muyu's power was rapidly declining, but when the last star fell, he suddenly fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood, which reflected a patch of red on the snow. He lowered his head and sat down in the snow. This was the limit he could do. Kill Longxi. The people of the Dragon League roared and rushed over. But when the light of the stars faded, Longxi was still standing there, wrapped in demonic flames. Facing him was a master who was waving 2 swords. It was Wang Xiang of the earth-bearing region. Buzz! The blade of the sword was piercingly cold. Wang Xiang's sword was no small matter. It forced Longxi to slide half a step back with his left foot. He suddenly grabbed the hilt of the sword with his right hand and pushed out his left palm, which directly hit Wang Xiang's chest. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. Puff! At the same time, Wei Chao's sun-shooting arrow finally succeeded. It shot into Longxi's abdomen and blood kept flowing. Throat! Behind the crowd, a huge monster rushed over, roaring and waving its sharp claws at Longxi's face. Ha! Longxi was shocked. This monster was neither a human nor a beast. It looked very frightening, and its strength was even more vigorous. It directly shook Longxi's sharp sword away, opened its mouth, and bit Longxi's left arm. It shook its head and bit with all its might. Pfff! Amidst the splattering of blood, Longxi's entire left arm was bitten off. "Demon King, well done!" Scholar Ling shouted from afar. Longxi endured the intense pain and spun around, smashing the hilt of his sword heavily on the head of the Demon King. He used the rebound force to retreat rapidly. Behind him, a group of Black Lava Army cavalry charged over. One of the generals shouted, "Commander, leave quickly. We will bring up the rear for you." "Don't run, Longxi. Kill him." Situ-sun raised his long sword. Wei Chou had already left the protection range of the crowd. He held his longbow and leaped a few times, landing on a big tree like an agile monkey. He drew the Hou-Yi bow, aimed at Longxi's back, and shot ferociously again. Puff! The sun-shooting arrow pierced through the bodies of 2 cavalrymen and hit Longxi's back, almost causing Longxi to fall off his warhorse. However, there were more and more cavalrymen around him, and they all raised their heavy shields to protect him. As they walked down the mountain, Longxi was instantly covered, and Wei Chao's next arrow could only land on those cavalrymen. The battle on the hillside had already ended. It was short but tragic. The eyes of Nangong Lai and the others were red. In less than 5 minutes of bloody battle, many experts of the Dragon League had died. Ling Songhan, Wang Xiang, and the others were once the elites of the godly state, but now they had died tragically in the hands of Longxi. Their corpses were still on the snowy ground, and everyone was busy fighting. so they had no time to bury them. Lin General, Lin General. Dingxi knelt on the snowy ground and supported Lin Muyu's arm. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi came together, and the two beauties were about to cry. At this time, Lin Muyu looked very terrible. His face was covered with blood, and the blood vessels on his wrists seemed to have burst. Qin Yin's eyes were filled with tears, and she tore off a piece of her cloak to bandage him without saying a word, while Tang Xiaoxi looked at him with red eyes, and her shoulders trembled slightly. Lin General, wake up. Dingxi gritted his teeth. The army is waiting for your command. Ah. Lin Muyu suddenly woke up from the nightmare, coughed violently a few times, and spat out a mouthful of blood. She opened her eyes and looked around, asking, "Everyone, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Longxi escaped. "What should we do next?" Dingxi was very anxious. "According to the original plan, let Su Jiantao come here." "Yes." A few minutes later, Su Jiantao rode over and knelt on the ground, saying, "This subordinate pays his respects to my lord. How is the battle situation?" Lin Muyu was still sitting on the snowy ground, lying in Qin Yin's arms, looking extremely battered. Su Jiantao said, "The majority of the 80,000 cavalrymen that Longxi brought have already entered the 10-mile Crescent Valley. The vanguard is currently fighting with us, and Qianfeng's troops have already begun to clash with them. It seems that we won't be able to hold on for long. Longxi's cavalrymen are the Blackstone Empire's most elite cavalrymen, and their charging and destructive power are astonishing." The sky has darkened. Lin Muyu looked at the sky and did not answer his question. Instead, she said, "Su Jiantao, carry out the mission that I gave you previously. 3,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp will change into the Blackstone army's uniform and flag, and kill their way into the enemy's camp from the top of the mountain. The Blackstone army's cavalrymen are originally from the Blackstone Empire, and they aren't familiar with each other. Our 3,000 men will change into their uniform and flag, and split into 30 small teams to infiltrate their camp. Kill anyone you see, and cause chaos among them. Not long after, the 80,000 cavalrymen will start to kill each other." "Yes, the subordinate understands. Go and do it immediately." "Yes." Su Jiantao led a few dozen cavalrymen away. Lin Muyu trembled as he tried to stand up, but his body was too weak. As he struggled, he coughed violently again, and blood flowed down from his nose. "Help me up the horse, I want to watch this battle," he said in a low voice. "Okay." Qin Yin nodded her head gently, and helped him up Taksha's back. Then Lin Muyu's entire body leaned on Taksha's back. The white cloak behind him was stained with blood, and his body was trembling slightly. "Marshal!" The eyes of Wei Chou, Qin Yan, Chen Xiaoli, and the rest turned red, and their hearts ached. For the sake of the Qin Empire's victory, Lin Muyu had almost given his all. "What are you waiting for?" Lin Muyu panted heavily, looked at the crowd and said, "The rest of you, lead your troops from the two sides of the mountain to the south, and form an encirclement around the 10-mile valley. This time, we must destroy the main force of Longxi in one fell swoop." Yes. Night fell, and the sounds of killing filled the air in the valley. Su Jiantao's 3,000 men disguised themselves as the enemy and killed their way in. Along the way, they killed anyone they saw, and shouted that the other party was a spy from the Qin army. This instantly caused an internal conflict. The 80,000 cavalrymen of the Blackstone army were in a mess in the valley, and they shot and killed each other like a pot of porridge. Chapter 1158. How could this be? How could this be? Don't panic, don't panic. Longxi rode on his horse, his left arm dripping with blood. He roared madly at the disorderly cavalry, but it was to no avail. The morale of the army was completely shaken. At the side, Zhou Ziang's face was deathly pale. "Despicable Lin Muyu, he sent people to wear our clothes and infiltrate our army to cause chaos. Now that the morale of the army is in chaos, we can no longer attack. Commander, give the order to retreat. You are also injured, you can't continue like this. Otherwise, it will be a crushing defeat." "You shut up." Longxi roared angrily, demonic flames surging from the sword in his hand. "Zhou Ziang, as the strategist of the Black Lava Army, you failed to form an alliance with the pirates because of your incompetence. Furthermore, because of your incompetence, you were unable to see through Lin Muyu's scheme and caused the 80,000 cavalrymen to fall into such a desperate situation. You useless trash, you actually have the face to talk about retreating to shake the morale of the army. Men drag Zhou Ziang away and behead him. Yes. 2 cavalrymen immediately twisted Zhou Ziang off his horse. Commander, Zhou Ziang's face was pale. Could it be that the army's defeat is my fault alone? I tried to persuade you, but you didn't listen. If you agreed to my battle strategy and set up camp on the plains instead of entering the 10-mile valley, would we have lost today? Motherf *Ker, you still dare to speak. Longxi stepped forward and waved his sword. At that moment, Zhou Ziang's head flew into the air. A pitiful strategist had fallen to such a tragic end. Commander, what's the situation now? A few captaincy asked. Longxi's eyes were cold. Continue to supervise the battle. Charge towards the north and kill anyone who resists. Regardless of whether they are our soldiers or not, kill them all. General Wang, you will supervise the battle. Yes, Commander. However, battles were ever-changing. Before Longxi could organize tens of thousands of troops to launch a counterattack, the mountains on both sides had already been set ablaze. Immediately afterward, magic crystal crossbows were shot into the crowd. Explosions rang out one after another, and the cavalrymen near the mountains were instantly reduced to ashes. From the top of the mountain, Wei Chao's loud voice could be heard. Black Lava Army, you have been surrounded. If you surrender, you will not die. If you continue to resist, you will die. Soon Qinjun shouted together with Wei Chao. Their voices came one after another, shaking the entire valley. The morale of the Black Lava Army was already low. With this shout, many of them put down their weapons. Longxi's face was pale. Commander, I will lead my brothers to break out of the encirclement. Let's break out of the encirclement towards the south. The situation is already hopeless. If we stay here, we will only be throwing our lives away. I still have over 3,000 troops, and it is enough to break out of the encirclement. As long as we join up with the 100,000 infantry troops on the plains, we will still have the strength to fight. As the saying goes, where there is life, there is hope. A captaincy advised earnestly. Longxi felt a sharp pain from his amputated arm. This arm was forcefully bitten off by the Beeman King. The incision was not smooth, and one could imagine the pain. He frowned and said, "Let's break out of the encirclement." Thus, close to 5,000 cavalrymen started to break out of the encirclement towards the south. The Qinjun did not obstruct them. They only continuously shot arrows from the mountains on both sides. When Longxi and the other generals escaped from the valley, there were less than 100 cavalrymen left. Fine snow fluttered in the air. When Longxi looked at the people following behind him, he couldn't help but feel as if a heavy rock was pressing down on his heart. The 80,000 cavalrymen had come with great momentum, but now, there were less than 100 of them left. This was a great humiliation. He knew that Lin Muyu knew how to fight a war, but how could he use his troops like this? He did not play his cards according to the rules and did not fight head-on. Instead, he used the weakness of the Black Lava Army's unclear organization and slogan to mislead his 80,000 cavalrymen into attacking each other. This person was too crafty. Longxi hated. He hated the heavens, hated the earth, and hated himself. In the Valley of 10 Miles, amidst the snow, Lin Muyu stood beside Takshu. She stretched out her arm for Chu Yao to explode again. Chu Yao frowned slightly. Her face was filled with heartache, but she didn't say anything. She knew that this was Lin Muyu's mission. Since he had chosen to attack the celestial pole continent, he had to risk his life and drink blood. He would rather die than regret it. Qianfeng gazed at the battle situation in the distance and said, "Marshal, do you really think it's worthwhile to capture these cavalrymen? They are from the Blackstone Empire. If they rebel after joining our army, it will be a disaster." "I know, but..." Lin Muyu wanted to say something but stopped. After a few seconds, she said, "There are about 500,000 cavalrymen in the celestial pole continent, but we only have less than 100,000 cavalrymen. Every warhorse, every set of armor, and every weapon are relatively expensive. Even if we have the money, we can't buy all of them now. Marshal Qianfeng should be clearer than me about the situation on the battlefield. A heavy armored cavalryman is equivalent to 3 infantrymen. These 80,000 cavalrymen are equivalent to the battle strength of 240,000 infantrymen. How can I bear to kill them all? Perhaps Marshal is right, Qianfeng said indifferently. Lin Muyu glanced at him and said, moreover, we came here from the distant Shattered Cauldron realm. We can't just rely on our own forces to attack and occupy the entire Celestial Pole continent. We are destined to use the people of the Celestial Pole continent to rule this land. Recruiting people to surrender will be our most important task in the future, and this is just the beginning. Qianfeng cupped his fists and said, Marshal's considerations are thorough. It's this subordinate's lack of consideration. This subordinate is only looking at the current situation with the eyes of a soldier, but Marshal is already looking at the current situation with the eyes of a ruler. Su Jiantao, who was at the side, said, Longxi's troops have been defeated, but he still has at least 100,000 soldiers in his hands. What should we do next? Rest for 3 days first. Lin Muyu gazed in the direction of Thousand Mountain City in the south and said, the 10-mile meandering valley was a fierce battle. We need to let the soldiers rest for a while. 3 days later, we will attack Thousand Mountain City and seize Longxi's foundation in one fell swoop. Yes. After daybreak, the army set up camp on the southern plains of the 10-mile meandering valley. In the early morning, the sound of hooves could be heard everywhere in the camp, but everyone's complexion was not very good, especially in the casualty camp, where the wailing of the seriously injured was continuous. The bodies of Ling Songhan, Wang Xiang, and the other 17 masters of the Dragon League were buried in the 10-mile meandering valley. Lin Muyu personally led everyone to pay their respects. It was already noon when they returned to the camp. After a hurried lunch, the post-war conference in the central tent was about to be held. Inside the marshal's tent, Chu Yao carefully changed the dressing for Lin Muyu. After this battle, many people were injured. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Zhulong, Nangong Lai, Feng Zhanlin, Zhulong Dijiang, and the others were all injured. Among them, Lin Muyu's injury was the most serious, almost to the point of hurting her tendons and bones. Therefore, the conference was filled with the smell of medicine. How is the situation in the prisoner camp? Lin Muyu asked. Ding Shi cupped his fists. It's basically in a very stable state. Tell me about the gains. Yes. Ding Shi smiled and said, Longxi's cavalry army has more than 83,000 people. In this battle, we annihilated nearly 30,000 of them, and nearly 50,000 surrendered. It is said that when Longxi fled, he only brought less than 100 horsemen with him. In addition, the harvest is quite plentiful. Our army obtained more than 63,000 war horses, nearly 70,000 sets of harnesses, armor, weapons, and more than 20,000 strong bows. In addition, nearly 20,000 warhorse corpses have been transported out, which can solve our rations problem for nearly 3 days. Good. Lin Muyu nodded and said, there is one more thing for Marshal Ding Shi to be responsible for. Oh, what is it? The problem of the prisoner camp's discipline. Lin Muyu said meaningfully, we need to turn these surrendered soldiers into our own army as soon as possible. Therefore, Marshal Ding Shi needs to take some time to explain to them the culture and history of the Qin Empire and Shattered Cauldron realm. Tell them our civilization, the supremacy of the Constitution, the supremacy of the Empress, and the equality of all living beings. This is where we are superior to the kingdom of Shang. As long as they understand this, they will fight and fight for it with their lives. Ding Shi took a deep breath. This subordinate understands. In 2 days, attack Qianshan City. We don't need prisoners of war to participate in this battle. Hand over all the captured cavalry to Su Jiantao and Wei Chou. Train more imperial cavalry, and let them have the fastest combat power. Yes. Su Jiantao and Wei Chou cupped their fists in unison. Lin Muyu stretched her arms and asked, is there any news from Shiping City? We won a great victory in the south. Logically speaking, Yangshang and Chunyu should be unable to sit still. Not yet. Wei Chou looked at him with clear eyes and said, Sir, there is one thing I don't understand. Is our army really going to attack Qianshan City? It is said that Qianshan City is a strong city. Back then, 3 large mercenary groups besieged Qianshan City for 2 months without success. Once Longxi decides to defend Qianshan City, I'm afraid we won't be able to attack it in a short period of time. Yes, Tang Jin nodded and said. Unless we can force Longxi to lead the infantry to fight against our cavalry, otherwise in a siege battle, our cavalry is inferior to the infantry. Lin Muyu smiled. Marshal, what are you smiling about? Tang Jun's hair stood on end. Commander Tang Jun, please wait a moment. Lin Muyu searched his robes with his injured arm for a while before finally pulling out a white cloth map. It was a map of Qianshan City's defenses. He placed the cloth on the marshal's desk and said, Look, this is the outline of Qianshan City. The city is built on a plain, and the 4 gates are very sturdy. Just the Barbican alone is frighteningly big, and the thickness of the city walls goes without saying. But the city walls built on the plain are very long, at least 50 kilometers long. There is only one layer of city walls 3 meters thick and 6 meters tall. Wei Chao's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, I know the marshal's strategy. Lin Muyu smiled and said, If we send the infantry and cavalry to pretend to attack the main gate, but use magic crystal cannons to flatten the city walls in the distance, then our cavalry can enter Qianshan City unhindered. No matter how strong Longxi is, he can't let his 100,000 infantry resist our 100,000 cavalry. Everyone eat and drink well. In 2 days we will kill them all. Yes. Everyone cupped their hands, their eyes burning. Since Lin Muyu made this plan, it was destined that the entire Blackstone Empire would soon fall into the hands of the Qin Empire. Chapter 1159. Gold. Fuxi sat on a gold-rimmed boulder with a long sword in his arms. He looked at the heavenly river formed by the flowing lights and flying flames in the sky. His gaze was deep and he remained silent. The sound of footsteps came from behind him. It was Miyue and Fan Yang. Master, Fan Yang said respectfully, there are tens of thousands of worlds in the 6 realms, but no one has comprehended the heavenly Tao of Mahayana. It seems that the heavenly Tao has been dormant for too long. Mortals have forgotten the respect and yearning for the immortal realm. Fuxi didn't say anything. He just raised his hand and waved it in the air. Instantly, the dense demonic clouds dispersed and a golden scroll unfurled in the air. It was the Heavenly Sound Scroll. At this moment, the Heavenly Sound Scroll was like a wordless scroll without a single word on it. This meant that no one had engraved their name on it for the time being. The heavenly Tao of Mahayana is so vast that mortals can't comprehend it in a short time. Fuxi's gaze was calm. How's the situation with the heavenly book of demon sealing? Master, please take a look. Miyue said softly. Suddenly, a purple demonic book appeared in front of them. It was densely filled with names. Miyue said. In the 6 realms, more than 60 people have fallen into the demonic path and become demon gods born in the 6 realms. Just in the celestial pole continent alone, 3 demon gods have appeared. The strongest among them has even reached the realm of a first-tier middle god. Master, are we really going to leave little junior brother alone? You should know that if any demon god wants to kill him, it'll be a piece of cake. Fuxi couldn't help but laugh. Miyue, you're being too worried. Don't worry, Lin Muyu is much stronger than you think. Moreover, none of his friends are easy to deal with. Even a middle god wouldn't be able to kill him so easily. Moreover, he once obtained many divine weapons in the desolate ruins, including the Qiyu armor and the Nuwa zither. I believe he'll be fine. But the demonic Tao is thriving, while the righteous Tao is declining. Are we just going to watch this happen? Miyue's eyes were filled with uneasiness as she said, Master, the devil world is growing stronger day by day. Once their strength is completely strengthened, can you be sure that the devil world won't covet the supreme shrine at heavens beyond? At that time, it will be too late for regrets. Fuxi said faintly, we are gods, we should know the will of the heavens and follow the will of heaven. If even I do such a heaven-defying thing, aren't you afraid that the realm beyond heaven will also develop greed, anger, and obsession? Aren't you afraid that the realm beyond heaven will take advantage of us and fall into the path of demons? Will it? Miyue was stunned. Fan Yang nodded. Junior Marshal's sister, I think he might. Miyue remained silent. Fushi was still looking at the heavenly river in the distance as he said, "The great Tao is clear and the mortal world is vast. You can see through it and see through it all. Don't worry, his Tao is only his, no one can interfere with it. Miyue, if you are really interested in this junior martial brother, then wait until he has comprehended the Mahayana heavenly Tao. There will be plenty of opportunities. Perhaps he will also be the key for us to counterattack the devil world and reshape the laws of the 6 realms." Yes, I understand. Even though she understood what was going on, Moon Compassion still turned around and left with her sword in hand. With a sway of her body, she reappeared in the golden divine palace. She sat on the roof and looked up at the bright light in the sky. January 10th, Tianji Palace. Yang Yang's sword was inserted into the stone slabs at the foot of the throne, swaying left and right. "Your Majesty, please calm down." The civil and military officials knelt down. "Calm down? How can I calm down?" Yang Yang's gaze was stern as he shouted in a low voice, "Zhou Ziang, this incompetent person, has ruined our Liaishan province. He has been defeated in consecutive battles. How did he boast that he would defeat Lin Muyu? Now we have lost nearly half of the 300,000 Black Rock army. The entire Liaishan province has fallen into a desperate situation." The commander of the Thunder Soul Corps, De Guxian, cupped his fists and said, "Your Majesty, actually Lord Longxi has already ascended to become a first-tier intermediate demon god. His strength is unfathomable. He still has 150,000 soldiers guarding Qianshan City. Qianshan City is very sturdy. Lin Muyu may not be able to break into the city in a short period of time. At this moment, we should immediately attack Shiping City and force Qin's back line. This will also buy Lord Longxi some precious time to deploy his troops." "Yes, Your Majesty, please give the order immediately." Han Yuan also cupped his fists and said. Yang Yang's gaze was sharp. He was so angry that he did not say a word. The chief strategist Sun Shi smiled. "Lord Sun, what are you laughing at?" Yang Sheng asked. Sun Shi said, "Your Majesty, there's no need to save Thousand Mountain City anymore. The news of our defeat will definitely come in 1 or 2 days." "Oh, why is Lord Sun so sure that Lord Longxi will lose?" Sun Shi bowed his head and said respectfully, "Your Majesty, Lord Longxi is indeed very strong, but in terms of war, Lin Muyu is much stronger than Lord Longxi. That Lin Muyu has been leading troops to war since 13 years ago, and has experienced hundreds of battles, big and small. She is extremely good at attacking people's hearts, and even better at attacking cities. It can be said that in terms of offense, Lin Muyu is the best in the world, but in terms of defense, Lord Longxi is not the best in the world, so in the Battle of Thousand Mountain City, Longxi will definitely lose." Yang Sheng frowned and said, "Even if what you say makes sense, what should we do now? Lin Muyu will take down Thousand Mountain City, our army will recover Shiping City, and the Qin rebels will be forced to the southern border. The original Blackstone Empire's land is barren, and the population is sparse. It will be difficult for them to achieve great things. As long as we stabilize the morale of our troops, we will be in an invincible position." "Good," Yang Sheng said indifferently. "Immediately pass down my decree. The troops under Chen Yu, Duo La, and De Guxian at the border of Xishan province are to mobilize a total of 400,000 soldiers to attack Shiping City. We will personally lead the troops." "Your Majesty is wise." January 11th. The war drums thundered. The Qin Empire's expeditionary army had already arrived outside Thousand Mountain City. The prepared scaling ladders, siege towers, and magic crystal cannons were slowly pushed out. The main attacker was General Qin Yan, the commander of the National Army. The royal and commander flags fluttered in the air. The army of nearly 200,000 spread out, densely packed as far as the eye could see. The war drums sounded in unison, and the momentum was overwhelming. On top of the city wall, Longxi's arm had already been bandaged. Although he was a demon, it would take some time to reconstruct his arm. For the time being, he could only maintain this amputated appearance. "Commander, the royal and commander flags are all there. Lin Muyu and Qinin must be there as well." A strategist pointed at the main camp of the Qin army from afar. "Longxi said indifferently. Pass the order to prepare the bows and crossbows. Also, push the fire oil and catapults up. Pass the order to the entire army. We must defend the north gate to our death. Yes. The beating of the war drums became more intense, as the mighty Qin army raised their shields and approached the city walls. Arrows rained down from the city walls, clanging and clanging as they landed on the shields. However, it was hard for the arrows to kill the soldiers. Torch stones. Longxi raised his arm. Immediately, huge burning stones fell from the city wall. In an instant, the Qin army below the city wall was badly mutilated. The crowd quickly shook, and hundreds of people were wounded by the arrows. Ha 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 ha. The captaincy of the Black Stone army laughed loudly. One of them said, Thousand Mountain City is the strongest city in the Blackstone Empire. The city wall is 10 meters thick and 20 meters high. It was built with huge stones from the Dragon Mountain. These Western barbarians must be dreaming if they want to take down Thousand Mountain City. Let them attack. No matter how many come, they will all die. Tonight, I will sneak attack their main camp. Let's see how the Western barbarians will collapse without attacking. Longxi laughed loudly. Good, good, good. Before he finished shouting, the ground suddenly trembled. After a long time, the rumbling of cannons could be heard from afar. What's going on? Longxi was shocked. The crowd looked to the west and said, It's the city wall in the west. Could it be? A dragon rider quickly descended from the sky, his face pale. Commander, things are not good. Lin Muyu's troops are bombarding the city wall in the west. That place is most likely going to fall. F***CKU. Longxi angrily stepped forward and kicked the dragon rider. He roared. What are your scouts doing? Why don't you know the exact location of Lin Muyu's troops? The dragon rider spat out a mouthful of blood from the kick. He hurriedly knelt down. We have committed a capital offense. Please forgive us, Commander. Cut the crap. Longxi gritted his teeth. Leave 50,000 soldiers to guard the city gate. The rest of you, follow me to the bombardment site to defend against Lin Muyu's troops. They must want to break through the city wall and fight us on flat ground. Yes. 2 hours later, when Longxi led 100,000 infantrymen along the main road to the west of the city, he saw that the city wall in the distance had been flattened. The sound of horses' hooves could be heard in the thick smoke. Longdan Army Camp's cavalry had already entered the city. Under the commander's banner, Lin Muyu, Wei Chou Sitisun, and the others took the lead. Without giving Longxi a chance to get into formation, Lin Muyu raised the Xianyuan sword and shouted, Kill them all! Leave no one alive! It's over. Longxi's heart sank. He was full of despair. Although he did not know the art of war, the West City was an open field with no cover at all. It was the cavalry's world. The infantrymen behind him, who lacked training, would not be able to kill Lin Muyu's elite cavalry no matter what. Moreover, Longxi was also injured. He was even more afraid of Wei Chao's Hoi Bao. Charge, kill them for me. He ordered the group of captaincy. Everyone raised their long swords. This infantryman army, which consisted of only a few hundred iron cavalry, charged towards the elite iron cavalry in Longdan Army Camp. Longxi did not attack personally. Instead, he stayed behind and stood under the commander's banner, watching the battle with his own eyes. The 100,000 infantrymen and archers did not even manage to kill more than 3 people before they were killed by the cavalry. Not only the elite iron cavalry in Longdan Army Camp, but also the crazy armored demon camp. The entire West City instantly turned into a river of blood. The massacre continued for close to 2 hours. The Black Lava Army no longer had a decent shield formation or spear formation to defend against the cavalry's attack. The army was defeated like a landslide and scattered in the streets. When the last group of people escaped from him, Longxi lost all his patience and laughed maniacally. It was over. Everything was over for him. Commander, let's go quickly. 2 dragon knights descended from the sky. One of them had his shoulder pierced by a spear of Xingtian army, and was bleeding profusely. He said, The situation is over. The North City Gate has been blasted open by the magic crystal cannon. Thousand Mountain City has already fallen. We can only break through from the east. Once we enter the territory of Red Cliff Province, we will be safe. The 200,000 wolf soldiers at the border of Red Cliff Province will cover us. Longshi said coldly. Fine, let's all go. Chapter 1160. In the afternoon, Qianshan City, which was known to be indestructible, was breached in just 4 hours. A large number of Blackstone soldiers surrendered and became the captives of the Qin Empire. The total number was more than 50,000. Just when Lin Muyu was about to order the 3 armies to enter the city, a rider came to report. She opened the letter. It was a letter from the leader of the southern pirate group. Feng Long. Lin Muyu just glanced at it, and her face was full of heavy expression. What did the pirate say? Qinin asked. Read it yourself. Lin Muyu handed the letter to her. After reading it, Qinin slightly frowned and said, These despicable pirates really know how to take advantage of people's difficulties. At this time, they want us to hand over Qianshan City to them. Humph, in their dreams. After reading the letter, Dingxi said, Your Highness, Marshal, Feng Long wants to surrender to the Qin Empire? It's just a petty trick. Lin Muyu's eyes were indifferent. He pretended to surrender to us so that we could free up troops to attack Hongyan Province and conquer the whole territory of the Blackstone Empire. In fact, he just wants to steal the gold, silver, jewelry and women in Qianshan City. Moreover, this letter doesn't look like a letter of surrender. It's more like a threat. Didn't you see? He said that if we don't accept this proposal, his 80,000 pirates will wander around. Together with the 200,000 wolf soldiers in the east, and the 100,000 elite soldiers in Liaoyuan Province, it's enough to make the Qin Empire's army in Qianshan City fall into eternal damnation. This despicable villain. Tang Xiaoxi gnashed her teeth in hatred. Wei Chou said, Your Excellency, what should we do now? Should we immediately enter Qianshan City and refuse the proposal of these despicable pirates? No, I accept their suggestion. Lin Muyu's eyes were like torches, and her eyes were filled with killing intent as she said, Wei Chou, send 2,000 men into Thousand Mountain City to protect the city's provisions. I will lead the army eastward and pretend to attack Hongyan Province. But when we reach the eastern mountains, we will make a detour and surround Thousand Mountain City from the north and south. No matter how many pirates the Fang Dragon brings, I will kill every single one of them. Yes. After a night's rest, the Qin army started marching eastward. 1 day later, they were already more than 300 miles away from Qianshan City. At this time, in the jungle west of Sanshan City, a group of pirates were hiding in the jungle. They didn't even light a fire to cook, they just gnawed on some salted fish. Fang Dragon, about 40 years old, was very strong. He sat under a huge tree and chewed on the salted fish in his hand. He couldn't help but spit. How disgusting. On the side, a man with a curved blade in his hand said with a smile, Great leader, we can eat and drink well in Thousand Mountain City tonight, and sleep with soft and tender women in our arms. What's the big deal about suffering now? Humph, any news from the cavalry? Not yet. At this moment, a messenger bird suddenly descended from the sky. Fang Dragon immediately caught it, and took out the letter. He couldn't help laughing. The Qin people are really fierce. They just conquered Thousand Mountain City, and now they really want to attack Hongyan City. Ah. The cavalry has reported that Lin Muyu's troops have arrived at the eastern mountains, which is a full day and night's journey from Thousand Mountain City. Even if Lin Muyu's troops are made of iron, they won't be able to return in a short time. Brothers, get ready to go. Thousand Mountain City is ours. Great leader, ha ha ha. I see that Lin Muyu really wants to make you the governor of Thousand Mountain City. Of course. Fang Dragon mounted his horse and threw away the salted fish in his hand. If a man can't conquer a city and be invincible, then what's the difference between him and a salted fish? Brothers, follow me to Thousand Mountain City. I have the appointment order personally written by Empress Qinin. From today onwards, I am the governor of Lisan Province, and you will follow me to the heavens, ha ha ha. The pirates burst into laughter. Not long after, nearly 10,000 cavalrymen and 70,000 infantrymen set off for Thousand Mountain City at lightning speed. At the same time, in the eastern mountains, Everyone got off their horses to rest. Lin Muyu nibbled on her rations and looked at the sky, calculating the time. She said, "General Sun, all the dragon riders move out and kill all the eyes following us." Yes. Under Situ-sen's command, dozens of dragon riders soared into the sky. Not long after, all the pirate scouts hidden in the forest were shot dead. Then, at Lin Muyu's order, the 100,000 cavalrymen divided into two groups and galloped from the north and south of the eastern mountains to attack the pirates in Thousand Mountain City. Never in his wildest dreams would the workshop dragon have imagined that he would fall into someone else's trap. Lin Muyu was far more ruthless and decisive than he had imagined. At night, there were no lights in Thousand Mountain City. After the battle, the people were as quiet as cicadas in winter. They didn't even dare to light their lamps. After the pirates entered the city, they were like wild beasts that had just been released from their cages, knocking on doors and looting everywhere. Meanwhile, Feng Ke led his men to the Imperial Palace. Thousand Mountain City was the imperial capital of the Darkstone Empire, and also the imperial palace of the emperor. A pirate like Feng Ke had never thought that he could become an emperor. Now the only thing he wanted to do was to immediately enter the imperial palace, sleep on the dragon bed, and sleep with all the concubines in the imperial harem. That night, the pirates blocked the 4 main gates of the city. They held a banquet in the palace hall, and got drunk. Feng Dragon was not in a hurry to loot since he was appointed as the governor. That night, he slept on the dragon bed with 2 palace maids in his arms. But before dawn, the 4 main gates were in chaos. Shouts of killing shook the sky and flames came from all directions. "What's wrong?" Feng Dragon looked up and asked with his arms around the 2 palace maids. Outside, a guard rushed over hastily and said, "Great leader, something terrible has happened. There are people attacking the city from outside, and they've already entered the city, while raising the banner of the Grand Qin Empire." "What?" Feng Dragon turned pale with fright. He walked out with his clothes disheveled and said, "How is it possible? Didn't Empress Qin Yin appoint me as the governor of the province? Why are they attacking us?" I don't know. Bring me my armor and weapons." Yes. Under the leadership of Feng Dragon, thousands of pirates rushed to the east gate with torches in their hands. The pirates who were in charge of defense outside had been killed. These pirates were tyrannical at sea, but once on land, they were no match for the well-trained soldiers of the Qin Empire. Under the light of the torches, a commander's flag was shining brightly. It was Lin Muyu. She did not ride a horse. She carried a sharp sword and led Situ-sun, Wei Chou, and others into the city on foot. After a night of nearly 200 kilometers, the horses were almost exhausted. This was a forced march, so Lin Muyu ordered everyone to fight on foot. Even if the cavalry became infantry, it was more than enough to kill the pirates. "You are Lin Muyu?" Feng Dragon asked with a long sword in his hand. "You are Feng Dragon?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. You. Feng Dragon's face was livid. "Shouldn't you be in the Dongmian Mountain 200 kilometers away? Why are you here?" "I'm here to kill you bunch of pirates." Lin Muyu strode toward him. The Xian Yuan sword was surging with dark force, and the world was in chaos. Feng Dragon was no match for her. He hurriedly raised his long sword to block. Clang! The handle of the long sword was cut off in the middle. Lin Muyu cut Feng Dragon into 2 pieces with her sword. Even the great leader of this group of pirates could not take one move from Lin Muyu. Too weak. Lin Muyu pursed her lips and said lightly, "Situ-sun Wei Chou, listen to my order." "Yes, General. Kill all the pirates. Leave no one alive." Yes. These pirates were all wrapped in headscarves and smelled of fish, which made them easy to recognize. Lin Muyu decided to kill them all before they could disguise themselves. Pirates did all kinds of evil and killed people like flies. Leaving them alive would only cause trouble in the future. At dawn, 80,000 pirates became 80,000 corpses. The city was full of blood. After the fierce battle, the 3 armies all withdrew from Qianshan City, and did not offend the people in the city. The next morning, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi returned to Qianshan City with 200,000 infantrymen. Although the 3 armies were tired, it was worth it to lure and kill 80,000 treacherous pirates. Tang Xiaoxi ordered the civil officials to put up notices to calm the people. It was not until noon that the three armies entered the city. When they entered the city, the people actually walked out of their doors and lined the streets to welcome them. It could be seen that the Qin Empire had a very good reputation in the celestial pole continent. But in fact, Lin Muyu also knew that this reputation came from the restraint of the three armies. It was precisely because the Qin army was different from other armies. Not only did they not offend the people, but they also killed 80,000 evil pirates overnight. Long live Her Majesty! Long live Her Highness Yin! The people shouted in unison. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi rode in the front, protected by Qin Yan, while Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, Situ-sun, Qianfeng, and others walked in the middle to show their seniority. Everyone rode their horses slowly forward. Suddenly, on a broken wall by the street, a child about 7 or 8 years old stood there. He was dressed in rags and looked like a homeless child. However, he raised his arms in front of his chest towards Lin Muyu, Wei Qiu and the other high-ranking generals. He did a childish empire military salute, and maintained this posture for a long time. Lin Muyu was slightly moved and immediately raised his arms to return the salute. Under his leadership, Wei Chou, Situ-sun, Qianfeng, and others also saluted and stared at the child, as if it had become a rule. The imperial soldiers in the back row also returned the salute to the homeless child. On the side, the people who saw this scene were also stunned. They had never seen a martial salute to a child, because in the eyes of the marshal, this child was nothing. After walking over, Situ-sun wondered, "Your Excellency, why do you salute a child who is a scavenger?" Lin Muyu rode on the horse and nodded. "I don't know, but he knows the imperial military salute, which shows that he yearns to be an imperial soldier. Since he has such a dream, I should encourage him. In the future, the Qin Empire will rely on countless such children to protect us." "I think so." Situ-sun's face was full of respect, and he didn't say anything, but he understood a principle in his heart. For Lin Muyu to be able to get to where he was today and become the commander-in-chief of a million-strong army, he did not just rely on his strength. To be able to make famous generals like Qianfeng, Su Jiantao, Feng Jixing, and Xiang Yu submit to him wholeheartedly, his personal charisma might be something that others could never hope to achieve. Chapter 1161. In the morning, the Dragon Cavalry Regiment and the Heavenly Xingtian Army had officially wiped out the pirates in Shihai Harbor. Nearly 5,000 warships had nowhere to escape. Thousands of pirates were driven ashore, and all the warships, large and small, were pulled into the harbor and temporarily became the property of the Qin Empire. In the afternoon, Situ-sun held Iron Helmet in his arms and walked into the main hall with his head held high. He knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Your Highness, the pirate warships of the southern islands have all been gathered around the harbor and the nearby islands. Thousands of pirates are on their way back. Should we execute them along the way and let the people see the final fate of the pirates?" Qin Yin stood in front of the throne and shook her head. "Forget it, the pirates are no longer a threat. Let these pirates join the army. At least they still have some strength." "Yes." After Situ-sun joined the army, Dingxi stepped out and cupped his hands. "Your Highness, we have cleared out the provisions. Longxi has hoarded nearly 2 million don of provisions in Qianshan City. They are well preserved, enough for our army to use for a season." "Okay," Qin Yin smiled and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Commander Dingxi. It is my honor to serve the Empire." Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Lin General, now that Qianshan City has been stabilized, the land, taxes, and officials have been re-registered and rewarded, what should we do next?" Lin Muyu, who was thinking about the Battle of Shiping City, was startled and said, "Your Highness, I believe that Qianshan City is not an impregnable fortress. Our army only took 2 hours to capture the city, and to the east of Qianshan City, Hongyan Province and Liaoyuan Xingxing are watching covetously. Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers are not to be trifled with. If we do not destroy Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers, we will not be able to gain a foothold in the territory of the Blackstone Empire." Tang Xiaoxi, who was next to the Empress, was slightly stunned and said, "Shiping City is under attack. Are we really not going to help General Feng? We have to believe that General Feng can resist. Lin Muyu said. Moreover, we don't need all 400,000 troops to attack Hisong. I only need to lead 150,000 Longdan army camp and 50,000 Baizé mercenaries to attack. The remaining 100,000 elites and surrendered soldiers can be led by a general to reinforce Shiping City and help General Feng. Qin Yin pursed her red lips and said, The war is urgent. Who can take on the responsibility? Qin Yong, Chen Xiaoli, and Tang Jin almost stepped out at the same time, cupped their fists and said, This subject is willing to go. Commander. Qin Yin was a little hesitant and looked at Muyu. Commanders, Lin Muyu said. Muyu is his commander. Feng Commander Sect Division, Dynasty and King Dynasty Mingqi is Sect is Ming City. Oh, who? Qianfeng, Lin Muyu said in a deep voice. Ah. All the generals looked at Lin Muyu and Qianfeng. After all, Qianfeng was a surrendered general. Now Lin Muyu actually wanted to hand over 200,000 troops to Qianfeng. This was very surprising. Marshal, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate, right? Tang Jun said tactfully. Although Marshal Qianfeng's military strategy is outstanding, he has always been in Bahuang province and isn't familiar with human life. In fact, Tang Jun didn't say it out loud. Those who aren't of the same race are bound to have different intentions. But Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, How can there be no clothes? I am robed with my son. When the Tianji Empire invaded, Qianfeng was already one of us. If he didn't fight to the death to delay the main force of the Tianji Empire in Bahuang province, our Qin Empire would have been destroyed. I believe in Qianfeng, and I believe in the loyalty forged by sword and blood. Qianfeng is a member of the empire. Every one of his subordinates is also a citizen of the empire. They are all our comrades. Qianfeng's eyes were cold. He knelt on one knee and said to Qin Yin, Qianfeng swears to never betray your highness and the empire. I won't hesitate to go through fire and water. If I violate this oath, I will die without a complete corpse. Qin Yin nodded. Commander Qianfeng, please rise. Lin General trusts you and so do I. Thank you, Your Highness. Lin Muyu cleared her throat and said, Then it's decided. Qianfeng will be the main commander, Chen Xiaoli will be the vanguard, Qin Yong will be the left, Tang Jun will be the right, Qin Yan will be the rear, and Ding Shi will be in charge of logistics. Immediately lead 200,000 troops to reinforce Shiping City. Remember to arrive before Shiping City falls. Don't disappoint Your Highness. Understood. The 6 commanders knelt together and said in unison. Lin Muyu was a subject and didn't say anything. She just tucked the golden helmet under her armpit and said to Si Kongyao, Wei Chou, Situ-sun and the others, prepare the provisions. We will set off tomorrow morning to attack Hongyan province and fight it out with Hisong's 200,000 wolf soldiers. Yes. At this moment, the 500,000 troops of the Qin Empire in the celestial pole continent were divided into 3 groups. Before dusk, the various prefectures and prefectures of Liaishan province sent their surrender reports one after another. The civil and military officials would arrive at Qianshan City in a day or two to pay their respects to the Empress. Therefore, this time, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi had to stay in Qianshan City to manage the internal affairs while Lin Muyu was in charge of the external affairs and led 200,000 elites to attack the city. At night, the snow stopped, and the clouds dispersed. Under the starlight, rows of armored cavalry had already left the city and headed north. They were the vanguard of the reinforcement army, led by Chen Xiaoli. From the high platform in the palace, one could see everything outside the city. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stood side by side and watched the brave warriors of the empire begin their new journey. I don't know if General Feng can withstand 500,000 troops. Qin Yin's eyes were full of worry. He will. Lin Muyu said softly. Who is Big Brother Feng? It's the invincible Feng Jixing. Besides, with the heavy artillery and the Imperial Guards, I believe that he can definitely defend Shiping City. Furthermore, the reinforcements will arrive in 3 to 5 days. Don't worry so much. What about you? Qin Yin turned around and looked at him. The starlight shone on the swirling tears in her eyes as she said in a sobbing tone. You almost died in the battle of the 10-kilometer valley. What will happen to the attack on Hongyan province this time? Brother, you are no longer a god. You are just a mortal. Why do you still treat yourself like a god and risk your life? Lin Muyu felt a pain in her heart. She stepped forward to hold her shoulders and said, Xiaoyin, this is the path that we have chosen. Once we have chosen it, there is no turning back. Whether it is a mountain of knives, a sea of fire, or a hell on earth, I will continue on. Don't worry, Hisong's wolf soldiers aren't as powerful as you think. I will definitely be fine. You say that every time. Qin Yin's eyes were misty as she looked at him and said softly, You are so arbitrary every time. You left the Dragon League Masters in Qianshan City. What will you do then? What if Longxi doesn't leave? Will you be able to withstand his attack? I won't. Don't I still have Wei Chou, Si Kong Yao, and Situ Sun by my side? Qin Yin did not speak anymore. She turned around and looked at the darkness in the distance. Under the cool breeze, she sobbed softly. Lin Muyu did not know how to comfort her. After returning from Earth, Qin Yin began to worry about personal gains and losses. She could not be blamed for this. After seeing the beautiful life, she naturally cherished the people around her even more. This is a crucial battle. Lin Muyu said softly, Xiaoyin, think about it. If I can defeat Hisong's wolf soldiers in Hongyan province, then the war within the territory of the Blackstone Empire can be quelled. The hundreds of city passes on the eastern border of the Blackstone Empire can act as a barrier to resist the threat from the direction of the Celestial Empire. The three major provinces and Xishan province can provide us with an endless supply of food. We can then establish a foundation in this foreign land. This is a crucial battle. We cannot avoid it. We can only face it. I know, Qin Yin murmured. Promise me come back safe and sound. Yes, I promise you. Look me in the eyes and say it again, okay? Yes. However, when Lin Muyu lowered his head and looked at Qin Yin's watery eyes, he suddenly had mixed feelings. His nose turned sour and he almost cried. He held Qin Yin's little hand tightly and whispered, Qin Yin, I don't understand why I love you so much, but I just love you. I'm going to patrol the barracks. I'll set off tomorrow at dawn. You don't have to send me off. After saying that, he jumped off the platform and disappeared into the night after a few leaps. He left the city. The Longdan army camp was set up outside the city. Qin Yin stared blankly at his receding figure. Her tears flowed silently. She understood him. He did not want to carry a trace of worry. What was needed in war was a heart of steel, not a heart as soft as water. What a heartless guy. A voice came from behind. Qin Yin knew who it was without looking back. She wiped her tears and said, Sister Chu Yao, why are you here? I was worried about you, so I came to see. Did I disturb you? No. Chu Yao, dressed in a white dress, was as spotless as a snow lotus in a cold palace. She walked leisurely to the edge of the platform and kicked the snow with her white boots. Don't feel sad. He is a famous general born for war. He won the world for you. You should feel happy. There will not be a second man in the world who will treat you like this. I know. Qin Yin suddenly felt a little tired. She sat quietly in the snow with her arms around her knees. Chu Yao also sat down with her and said, Xishan province and Hongyan province are at war. I don't know how many people will die in this war. Now the spring plowing festival has passed, but there is no sign of spring recovering. I don't know how long the winter will last. Qin Yin was speechless. Xiaoyin, you should feel happy. You are waiting for him to come back with glory. Chu Yao laughed at herself and said, Compared to you, others are not so lucky. For example, what about me? What am I waiting for? Waiting for my brother to come back? Qin Yin's eyes turned red. I'm sorry, Sister Chu Yao. Why are you sorry? Chu Yao pursed her lips and faintly smiled. Everything is predestined. Following the will of the heavens is the only thing we can do. It's cold outside. Let's go back. You are the empress, graceful and noble. You can't be willful like a little girl. Chapter 1162. On the 14th of January, Yang Shang led the army personally. The East Com Army, Thunder Spirit Army, Divine Feather Army, and Heaven's End Army. A total of 550,000 soldiers besieged Sheeping City. In the morning, after the sun rose, the war drums thundered. The entire Sheeping City was surrounded so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The outside of the city was densely packed with the Shang army, while inside the city, there were only tens of thousands of Imperial Guards and Mingshan province elites. The rest were injured soldiers, the old, the weak, and the disabled. On the city tower, Feng Jixing wore the vice-marshal's cloak and looked at the Shang army's battle formation in the distance with his hand cupping his eyes. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and said, "Oh my God, there are 100,000 people outside the northern city alone." At the side, Xiangyu said, "There is news from all four sides of the city wall. Our positions in the outer city have all been captured. This time, Yangshang has mobilized 500,000 real troops." "How is our defense situation?" Feng Jixing asked. Xiangyu said lightly, "There are 30,000 troops assigned to each city gate. As for the 60,000 reserves, we haven't used them yet. They are all recruits who have just been recruited and don't have much combat power. Sending them would just be sending them to their deaths." "I know," Feng Jixing said in a low voice. "Has the wind attribute raw stone been placed?" Guanxing nodded. Senior Luo Tianji said that it was launched 2 hours ago. "It is not suitable for us to send any aerial troops. It is the same for Yu Shu. He will be easily killed by the wind saws." "That's good." Feng Jixing's eyes were filled with ridicule as he smiled. "Since Yangshang wants to attack the city so much, let them come. Guanxing, you will guard the southern city. Zhang Wei, you will guard the western city. Luo Yulin Sun, you will guard the eastern city." "Yes." After assigning the generals, Feng Jixing took an apple from the fruit platter behind him and took a big bite. He turned around and sat on the city wall with a provocative smile in his eyes. "Prepare for battle. Fire the cannons when the enemy is 2,000 meters away. Fire the ballistae when the enemy is 500 meters away. Fire the oil in the moat when the enemy is 100 meters away. Draw your swords when the enemy is 10 meters away." "Yes, Vice Marshal." Everyone nodded in unison. Xiangyu smiled faintly. "What are you laughing at?" Feng Jixing glanced at him. Xiangyu smiled and said, "In the entire world, only you, Feng Jixing, can fight like this. However, this general wholeheartedly accepts your defeat. It is not a coincidence that a person like you can win every battle." "What are you talking about? You really don't know how to speak." Feng Jixing mumbled to himself for a while before shouting, "Pass down my order. Anyone who kills one enemy will be rewarded with 100 Jin-in coins. Anyone who kills 2 enemies will be promoted by 1 level. Anyone who kills 5 enemies will be promoted by 3 levels. So on and so forth until I can no longer give you a promotion. If you kill 100 people, I'll give you the mansion I secretly bought in Lanyan City. Kill 1,000 people, and I'll give all my concubines to you." Everyone burst into laughter. A centurion laughed and said, "Commander, you don't even have a concubine. Besides, aren't you afraid that Her Highness Ing will accuse you of accepting bribes?" "What's there to be afraid of, Her Highness Ing? She's my sister-in-law." "Damn it, that's what you should be asking. Sit tight on your cannon platform. Don't let a magic crystal cannon blast you backwards." "Yes, Commander." As the enemy approached, the magic crystal cannons on the city walls began to fire. Beautiful purple flowers bloomed on the plains in the distance. However, there were too few magic crystal cannons in Sheeping City, and their ammunition was almost exhausted. Therefore, they could only serve as a deterrent. As for killing the enemy, they had to wait for them to get closer. Below the city walls, the sound of the war drums grew more intense. The Shang army's siege weapons appeared and approached the city under the protection of countless heavily shielded cavalry. "Ballistae." Feng Jixing waved his hand. Immediately, a type of defense weapon made of steel began to fire. Huge rocks were shot out. Due to the height of the city, the projectiles could reach a distance of several hundred meters. Furthermore, they were all round rocks. Bang, bang, bang. Huge rocks fell on the crowd below the city walls and rolled rapidly, crushing the Shang army soldiers into meat paste. Screams of pain rang out incessantly. Soon, the enemy's battle formation began to fall into disorder. "They're getting closer," Xiang Yu said in a deep voice. Feng Jixing raised his arm and threw away the apple core. "Crossbows, prepare to shoot." On the city walls, a dense number of archers were already in position. They pulled out their bows in layers and prepared to shoot. The city walls of Shiping City were very thick. There were a total of 10 layers of archers, which meant that they could fire 10 rounds of arrows in a minute. One could well imagine how powerful they were. Even the arrow boxes, stone cannons, and other weapons were pushed out. "Fire!" Xiang Yu roared. In an instant, countless arrows fell from the sky like a swarm of locusts. Below the city walls, most of the soldiers did not have shields and could only use their flesh and blood to block the arrows. After all, forging a shield required a large amount of steel. However, there was not that much steel in the celestial pole continent. It was simply impossible to equip everyone with a shield. In the blink of an eye, there was a pile of corpses at the bottom of the city walls. However, the siege ladders and siege towers were getting closer and closer. Feng Jixing saw this and his gaze turned cold. He said, "Fire arrows, set them on fire." After a round of fire arrows, the siege towers caught fire one after another. However, the effect was clearly not that good. By the time the siege towers caught fire, they had already approached the city walls and lowered their slabs. Xiang Yu narrowed his eyes and said, "We can't hold them off anymore. Use the heavenly book." Feng Jixing roared. "Wind-type heavenly book, aim at the siege towers." Yes. Some of the experts from the Dragon League activated the energy of the heavenly book. Suddenly, a storm erupted in the air and swept forward. The biting cold wind blades were unstoppable and turned the siege towers into dust. The soldiers wielding longswords in the siege towers also died tragically, their bodies a bloody mess. "They have reached the moat. Fire!" Feng Jixing ordered. The fire arrows were fired, and the moat was immediately set ablaze. Some of the Shang army soldiers, who were caught off guard, immediately fell into the sea of fire. Soon a strong burning smell spread in the air. The entire Shiping City was in the midst of war. The kingdom of Shang had already sent several times the number of the enemy to attack the city. It seemed like they were determined to win. However, the fierce battle continued until dusk. The Shang army was still stopped at the moat. They couldn't even get close to the city walls. Finally, a dragon's roar came from the sky in the distance. They had mobilized the dragon cavalry regiment. "They're here." Feng Jixing immediately ordered, "Dragon hunting crossbows, sky shooting cannons, get ready." The soldiers on the city walls raised their weapons and faced the enemies in the sky. The huge figures swooped down one after another. As usual, dragon flames surged from the necks of the huge dragons, waiting for the most powerful attack on the ground. However, before the huge dragons could approach the ground, there were suddenly popping sounds. The tough dragon armors were directly torn apart, and the dragon riders died in the air one after another. They were like flies that had been electrocuted, and they continuously fell into the city. "Ha ha ha ha." Xiang Yu laughed heartily. Feng Jixing couldn't help but laugh as well. "I've seen rain in my life, but I've never seen a dragon cavalry regiment in the rain. How rare." At this moment, all of the generals in the Shang army camp were shocked. "What's going on? Why did more than half of our dragon cavalry die in an instant?" Yang Shang was shocked. "It seems to be some kind of powerful barrier," Chen Yu said. "Recall the dragon cavalry regiment immediately." Sun Shi's gaze was gloomy. "Your Majesty, sound the gongs to retreat. It's going to be night soon. Our army isn't prepared enough. We can't attack the city during the night. Let's fight tomorrow at dawn." "Damn it." Yang Shang clenched his teeth and said, "I'm going to die from anger. I'm going to die from anger." Chen Yu smiled faintly. "Your Majesty, this subject has a plan. Please speak, Marshal." "Your Majesty, do you still remember the plan that Lord Sun Shi once proposed? The Empire's defeated army was released by Lin Muyu. Now, this subject has secretly ordered a portion of the defeated army to return to Shiping City. These people have already been taken in by Feng Jixing and formed into a 5,000-man patrol army. During the day, it will be Feng Jixing's army that will defend the city, but at night, It will be these 5,000-man patrol army that will stand guard. This subject has already made an agreement with the city guards. At midnight, we will light a fire as a signal. They will open the city gates and cooperate with us to break through the city. No matter how powerful Feng Jixing is at defending the city, he won't be able to defeat our 200,000-man cavalry in urban warfare. Marshal, are you confident? This subject is willing to personally lead the troops to attack the city. That's good. Yang Shang narrowed his eyes. We will wait here to celebrate Marshal's success. Yes, then this subject will go and prepare. The bright starlight shone on the city walls. Most of the soldiers had already fallen asleep. A cool breeze blew gently. In the corridor of the city tower, a square table was placed there. On it were a few dishes and a pot of flower wine. Feng Jixing used the light from the lantern to search for the rare green beans with his chopsticks. He looked very carefully. Xiang Yu sat opposite him with a calm gaze, drinking cup after cup of wine. At this moment, Guanxing, dressed in a long gown, walked over and said, "Commander, this subordinate has already made arrangements. There are many soldiers lying in ambush in the 4 barbicans. They are using the best white drill arrows." Very good. Feng Jixing nodded. Guanxing frowned and said, "But this subordinate does not understand. Why are you so sure that these surrendered soldiers are pretending to surrender? Logically or emotionally, there are no signs of them pretending to surrender. The Great Qin Empire's battle on the East Sea has settled the situation. It is reasonable for them to submit to us. Moreover, it is only natural for them to surrender in order to earn a living." Feng Jixing smiled faintly. "Guanxing, you only know the art of war, but you do not understand the trifling common sense. Please enlighten me, Commander. It's very simple." Feng Jixing put down his chopsticks and said, "Just because they left and returned, it must be a fake surrender. There is no such logic in the world. If they wanted to surrender, they would have done so long ago. Why wait until they left and then come back? Sun Shi and Qin Yu think that they are using extraordinary tactics and will definitely win, but they forget that there is common sense in the world. If they go against common sense, it will be too easy to see through them." Guanxing was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. This subordinate was too careless. It is really shameful. Go and make the arrangements. After the battle, just tell me how many people you killed. Yes. Chapter 1163. That night, the Barbican was ablaze with fire. Thousands of arrows were fired. The white diamond arrows were powerful enough to penetrate armor and shields. Even those wearing heavy armor could not escape. The sounds of killing continued until dawn. There was no one left alive in the Barbican. At daybreak, Feng Jixing personally inspected the battlefield. Snow fell from the sky once again. The flying snow melted with the blood on the ground, forming a depth of 2 centimeters. A portion of Feng Jixing's combat boots was submerged in the blood. Corpses were piled up all around the Barbican. Many soldiers were pulling arrows from the corpses. The white diamond arrows were very precious and had to be retrieved. Guanxing and Lin Sun followed closely behind. Guanxing said, "Commander, you have foresight. They are indeed here." Lin Sun said, "Commander, we did not find Qin Yu's corpse. However, a soldier said last night that Qin Yu was shot by more than 1 arrow. With Qin Yu's cultivation, he might not be able to survive even if we save him." Qin Yu escaped. Feng Jixing looked disappointed. What he wanted to see the most in this battle was Qin Yu being shot dead. After all, Qin Yu was the real enemy. If it was just Yang Shang, it would be nothing. Lin Sun continued. They launched a surprise attack from 3 Barbican. There are more than 13,000 corpses in the Barbican. Most of them are cavalrymen. It seems that Qin Yu planned to use the cavalry to launch a surprise attack on Shiping Prefecture and take us down in one fell swoop. Fortunately, we were prepared. Besides, the 5,000 surrendered soldiers have been taken down. What should we do with them? Kill them, Feng Jixing said calmly. He then turned to look into the distance and said, "With Qin Yu's defeat, there will be an even more tragic siege this morning. Pass down the order. Prepare the 3 armies for battle." Yes. Not long after, the war drums rumbled. In the distance below the city, heavy-duty projectors appeared and threw burning oil cans into the city. Not long after, Shiping City was engulfed in flames. On the second day of the siege, the Shang army attacked with fire. Organized the people in the city to carry water to put out the fire. Feng Jixing's gaze was indifferent as he said, "Don't panic. The archers must not stop shooting. We can't let them get close to the city. Once the fire attack is over, it will be the latter attack." "Yes, Commander." Guanxing swept his gaze across the area, and the 3 Kiliarchs acknowledged the order and left. As expected, after nearly 2 hours of continuous bombardment, the drums of the Shang army started beating in unison. Ladders and siege towers once again appeared in the ranks. Although over 100 of these machines had been destroyed yesterday, another one had appeared today. It seemed like they had long been prepared. "How long do you think they'll last?" Feng Jixing asked. Guanxing's gaze was like a torch as he said, "The Shang army has as many as 500,000 men and horses. After yesterday's attack and night raid, they suffered about 50,000 casualties. I believe that Yangshang must have given a death order to take down Shiping Prefecture within a limited time. Otherwise, these soldiers wouldn't be working so hard. Based on this momentum, it won't be a problem for them to attack for half a month." Feng Jixing frowned and said, "It's a pity that our supplies can't last that long." "Commander, what's wrong?" "Half of the arrowheads, magic crystal crossbows, and arrow boxes have been used up yesterday. There are less than 2,000 magic crystal cannons left, and a lot of the heavenly books have been used up. The Shang army can continue to attack for half a month, but we can only hold on for 3 days at most." Lin Sun frowned and said, "Commander, after today's battle, I will lead the reserve troops out of the city to pull out the arrows. Even if we are ambushed, only the reserve troops will die." "Pull out the arrows out of the city?" Feng Jixing said calmly. "Do you know what will happen if they launch a surprise attack?" "Death." Lin Sun smiled and said, "But what does it matter? Since I am loyal to Her Highness, it is my honor to die in battle for the Empire. It is also the honor of a soldier." "Approved. Be careful when you leave the city. It doesn't matter if the reserve troops die, but you can't die. Keep your life and prepare for the street battles after the city is breached." "Yes." The word "breach the city" was like a heavy hammer that fell on the hearts of Lin Sun, Guanxing, Zhang Wei, and the others. Feng Jixing looked further ahead. Had he already predicted that Shiping City would definitely fall? Huge rocks smashed against the city walls, causing the outer walls of Shiping City to buzz. The people on the city walls seemed to have experienced a huge earthquake. The outer walls of the city walls were peeling off continuously, revealing the solid mud bricks made of clay and glutinous rice. No one had expected the inside of Shiping City's city walls to look like this. Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu looked at each other in dismay. "What the hell is this?" Xiang Yu asked. "Mud bricks. Many farmers' houses in the mountains are built this way. Mud mixed with glutinous rice will be very solid after it dries. It can be considered as one of the local customs of the celestial pole continent." "Is it stronger than a stone wall?" Xiang Yu was somewhat annoyed. "No." Feng Jixing smiled and said, "As you can imagine, the original owner of Shiping City used the money saved from building the city walls to build an even more luxurious palace. The source of this money is obvious." "What a scam." Xiang Yu gnashed his teeth. "Can this mud brick wall withstand the artillery fire of the Shang army?" "No, but it won't be destroyed in a short period of time." In the face of the enemy's fierce attack, Feng Jixing was still calm and unruffled. It was only when the Shang army in the distance began to use the corpses of their own soldiers to fill in the moat that Feng Jixing finally lost his composure. He frowned and said, "What kind of monsters are Yangshang's subordinates? They are really unscrupulous. Aren't they afraid of disappointing the morale of the army?" Lin Sun said, "After Yangshang became Emperor Shang, he has always ruled the country with iron laws. It is the same in the army. The hierarchy of superiors and subordinates is very strict. Even 10-man commanders have the authority to deal with the soldiers under their command at any time and place. The entire Shang army operates like a huge machine. Its purpose is only to attack and plunder. If it wasn't for the elites of our Qin Empire, I'm afraid that not many people in the world would be able to withstand it. Feng Jixing sneered. Is someone like Yangshang worthy of being a god? I finally understand why the heavens want to deprive the gods of their power. Commander, look over there. Lin Sun stretched out his hand and pointed into the distance. There, rows of soldiers holding silver shields left the central army in an orderly manner and went straight towards the direction of the city. Those soldiers looked very elite. The shields and silver steel swords in their hands were shining with a faint luster. What army is that? Feng Jixing asked. Divine Feather Battalion. Xiang Yu squinted his eyes and said, it is the most elite army under Yangshang's command. It is the 50,000 Divine Feather Battalion led by the former battle angel Dora. Most of the people in the Divine Feather Battalion were originally from the Northern Heaven Realm. Their combat power is very amazing. Be careful. It seems that Yangshang has already planned to use the strongest army to attack the city. Oh, so it seems that Yangshang has already lost his patience. Feng Jixing smiled faintly and said, Lin Sun, go and gather the 5,000 Iron Armor Battalion of the Imperial Army to help me defend the city. In addition, stop shooting all the arrow boxes and replace them with white diamond arrows. Everyone, don't be stingy. Give me weapons tempered with white diamond. He suddenly pulled out the Scarlet Phoenix blade and stabbed it into the stone floor in the middle of the city wall. He said coldly, everyone listen to my orders. Do not let a single enemy cross this line. Otherwise, don't be a soldier and go home to farm. Everyone was solemn. Xiang Yu also held the bloodthirsty spear and said to the deputy general, go, bring my guard battalion here. We can't hold back anymore. Yes, Commander. Not long after, almost all the guards on the city wall were changed. They were all elites of the Imperial Army and Mingshan Province's garrison. Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu had almost taken out their trump cards. Archers, keep shooting. Aim and shoot. Zhang Wei shouted. Ladders were placed on the edge of the city wall. They were too strong and could not be pushed down at all. The first batch of Shang soldiers had already been shot dead. In the distance, the Godly Feathers Battalion with silver shields and armor had arrived. They wore the emblem of wings on their shoulders. That was the symbol of the Godly Feathers Battalion, and it was also the symbol of their glory. I'm afraid even silver weapons aren't that sturdy. A bunch of flashy but impractical fools. Zhang Wei said lightly. Lin Sun smiled and said, that's not silver weapons, but white steel that has a luster similar to silver. It's very sturdy. Long swords made of white steel can be said to be invincible. At the very least, it can cut inferior armor in half. Be careful, they're coming up. Arrows rained down on the city wall, but the majority of the Divine Feather Battalion were protected by their armor. Furthermore, their combat quality was very high. They climbed the ladders with one hand and raised their shields with the other, deflecting the arrows from the archers on the city wall. Unless it was a strong archer with godly strength in both arms, even white diamond arrows couldn't pierce through the white steel. Spears. At Lin Sun's command, a group of spearmen raised their 3-meter-long iron spears and stabbed at the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers on the ladders. However, most of the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers were originally gods, so they weren't that easy to kill. They blocked the spears with their swords and charged forward. How can we do this? Shoot them with the boxes of arrows. Feng Jixing shouted. A row of boxes of arrows was placed horizontally, and after a round of fierce shooting, the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers fell from the city wall one after another, covered in blood. Even their battle armor and white steel armor couldn't save their lives. Huh. Atop the ladders, Duo La looked up at the corpses of the Divine Feather Battalion soldiers falling from the city wall, and his face immediately turned livid. Charge! Hurry up! We have to finish this quickly. A dense group of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers charged straight up the city wall. Buzz! A King Douyin rushed up the city wall. It was a general of the Divine Feather Battalion, with a high cultivation base. He held a steel sword in his hand and continuously killed 3 Imperial Army soldiers. His face was ferocious as he sneered. You trash want to stop me? Clang! Feng Jixing pulled out the Crimson Phoenix saber from the ground, and the Azure Dragon saber in his left hand. He shouted, F***ck Grandma Li. Come at me. The general also laughed heartily and charged over while waving his longsword. Chapter 1164. Bang! A huge wave of King's battle flame swept out. Feng Jixing's strength was obviously inferior to the opponent's, and he was shaken several steps back, but the opponent was not much better. Feng Jixing's martial god art was very powerful, and the power penetrated into his arms, making him feel as if his strength was being devoured, and his face was slightly shocked. What are you waiting for? Armor-piercing bow? Feng Jixing shouted. Behind him, more than a dozen soldiers of the iron armor camp raised their black muzzles and fired at the Holy King Realm expert in front of them. Suddenly, bullets flew everywhere, and the Holy King Realm expert could only take out his battle armor to defend, but the scorching heat and armor-piercing power of the bullets made him extremely uncomfortable. After all, he was not at the Divine Realm, and could not withstand such a barrage. After a round of shooting, Zhang Wei roared and swept his long saber across. Bastard! The opponent roared, grabbed Zhang Wei's long saber with one hand, and said angrily, Trash like you want to kill me. Ka! With a crisp sound his head flew up, and Feng Jixing's saber ended his life, and blood splashed all over Zhang Wei. Do you still think this is a one-on-one fight? Feng Jixing kicked his body and shouted, Defend the city, kill! Waving the ice and fire blades in his hands, he advanced back and forth on the city walls, killing the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion one by one. As for Zhang Wei, Lin Sun and the rest, they became more and more courageous as they fought. One after another, the heavenly books blossomed on the city walls, sending off the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion who rashly rushed up the city walls. Hong! A burning light suddenly appeared on the city wall. It was Dora. For wings faintly condensed behind her, and the sharp sword in her hand was surrounded by the power of the law of black light. As soon as she appeared, she killed many people in succession, forcing a group of Imperial Army soldiers to retreat again, and more soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion behind her, gathered in the blink of an eye, and had a great momentum. Feng Jixing raised his two sabers and charged over. At the same time, Xiang Yu also roared and transformed into a flaming beam of light that shot toward Dora. In the past, Xiang Yu had been defeated by Duo La. This was the disgrace of his life. Iron Shield formation, press forward. Lin Sun ordered loudly. On the city wall, countless soldiers of the iron-armored camp rushed up with their heavy shields, trying to push down the soldiers of the Divine Feather Battalion who had rushed up the city wall. In the air, Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu had already fought many rounds with Duo La. The two of them were fighting against one, but they were unable to gain the upper hand. Duo La's strength was maintained at the Holy King Realm, which was obviously a level higher than theirs. Lin Sun sheathed his sword and snatched a bow from his subordinate. He knocked an arrow and shot. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through the air with an ear-piercing sound as it headed straight for Dora's neck. Huh! Dora was startled and hurriedly dodged with his battle flames, but Feng Jixing's Crimson Phoenix saber swept across his body, shattering his battle armor. Combined with Xiang Yu's spear, which was imbued with the power of his martial soul, even someone as powerful as Duo La was blasted off the city wall. The shield formation continued to press forward, and cold gun muzzles extended from between the shields. They fired a volley of bullets at the Divine Feather Battalion. Instantly, those with lower cultivation were shot to death, and blood flowed all over the ground. Coupled with Feng Jixing's heaven-devouring demonic saber, a violent storm surged, and dozens of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers fell off the city wall. Just like that, the first wave of attacks was repelled. Feng Jixing panted heavily. Blood seeped from his arm through his white robe. That was a wound caused by Duo La's sword. Add fuel to all the scaling ladders and burn them. He ordered loudly, his forehead dripping with cold sweat. Xiang Yu wasn't much better off. There were 2 sword wounds on his shoulder. Although the wounds weren't deep, if it weren't for Lin Sun's sword he might have been killed by Duo La. Woo woo. In the distance, the sound of Shang Army's horn to retreat could be heard. Duo La gritted his teeth and returned to the formation. He led a group of Divine Feather Battalion soldiers to Yangshang and asked in confusion, Marshal, why did you order us to retreat? Give me another chance. The Divine Feather Battalion will definitely be able to take the city. We know. Yangshang's gaze was indifferent. Give us another chance. The Divine Feather Battalion will naturally be able to take the city wall, but they will also lose a large number of warriors. We can't let these disciples of the immortal realm die in vain at the hands of mortals, so let the mortals attack. Duola, come sit beside me. You just need to watch the battle. Your Majesty, please give me another chance. Come sit beside me. Do you want to defy the imperial decree? Yangshang's gaze was burning. Duola didn't dare to say anything else and returned to Yangshang's side. Yangshang narrowed his eyes and looked at the group of civil and military officials. We have personally led the troops here for 2 days, but we still haven't been able to take Shiping City. There are only 2 troops, Feng Jixing and Xiangyu, in this city. They aren't the most elite troops of the Qin Empire, the Longdan army camp. Moreover, we haven't been able to take it down after such a long time. If Lin Muyu were to come, what would happen? Everyone hurriedly knelt down and said in unison, "We are incompetent. We are guilty of the death penalty." That's right. You are guilty of the death penalty, Yangshang sneered. Last night, Marshal Chun Yu's sneak attack was seen through and he was ambushed. He was also wounded by an arrow. Who else has a good plan to take the city? The second strategist, Gong Bujin, said in a low voice, "Your Majesty, I have a plan. However, I'm afraid it will take some time." Speak. Shiping City is low-lying. The Lu River, which is 20 li away, has been filled with water due to the melting of the snow. If our army excavates the Lu River and diverts the water to Shiping City, we can drown Shiping City at least 3 meters deep. Even if we can't drown Feng Jixing to death, we can at least deplete the rations and equipment in the city. All we have to do is wait. Within half a month, Feng Jixing's army will definitely be defeated. Yangshang was silent. The injured Chun Yu coughed and frowned. This is a vicious plan. Your Majesty, you must not adopt it. Why, Marshal? There are millions of civilians in Shiping City. Once Shiping City is flooded, the ones who will die are the civilians. They were originally Your Majesty's subjects. Subjects. Yangshang smiled. They are but ants. If Marshal Chun Yu doesn't have a better plan, why don't our army try Mr. Gongbujin's plan? What do you think? Chun Yu frowned. After some thought he said, "I have an idea." "Oh, speak." "Let's do as Gongbujin says. Our army will no longer besiege the city. The 3 armies will retreat to high ground and send a large number of soldiers to excavate the Lu River." Gongbujin couldn't help but laugh. "Marshal Chun Yu, this is clearly my plan. Why do you say it's yours? This is only one of the reasons." Chun Yu smiled faintly and cupped his hands in greeting to Yangshang. "Your Majesty, our army has a total of 500,000 soldiers. We can store all of our rations in Huashi Commandery, which is 15 kilometers north of Shiping City. The 3 armies will dig the Lu River. Who do you think Feng Jixing is? Once he learns of this, he will definitely not sit and wait for death. Furthermore, both Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu are famed generals for raiding rations. I believe that they will definitely send elite troops out of the city to launch a sneak attack on Huashi Commandery. Our army can then set up an ambush in Huashi Commandery and defeat Feng Jixing's elite troops in one fell swoop. Then we can follow up our victory and attack Shiping City. What a good move to advance by retreating." Yangshang laughed heartily. "With Marshal Chun Yu around, I have nothing to worry about. Men, do as I say. Order the 3 armies to stop attacking the city and retreat to higher ground. Send all of our rations and supplies to Huashi Commandery." "Yes, Your Majesty." It was nighttime. Heavy snow swirled in the air, and Shiping City was deathly silent. On the city gate tower, the heater was no longer hot. Feng Jixing, dressed in a blood-stained cloak, gazed into the distance and muttered, "Has Yangshang really retreated? What is he trying to do?" Beside him, Guanxing said respectfully, "Our scouts have reported that Yangshang has indeed retreated. Most of his troops are camped in the mountains, and a portion of them are heading east." "East? What's in the east?" 10 kilometers away is the Lu River. The water level of the Lu River has already risen. Feng Jixing turned around and placed his hands on the map on the table. Could it be that Yangshang wants to flood Shiping City? It's highly possible. Guanxing smiled. They have been attacking for a long time and have suffered heavy losses. They can't afford to waste any more time. Once our southern army returns, they will attack from both inside and outside. The Shang army will be in a desperate situation. Is there any news from the southern army? No. We have just removed the wind attribute raw stones, but we still haven't received any news. It's possible that the messenger birds of the southern army have been mistakenly killed by the wind saw. This is really a headache. I haven't seen any scout bees in the past few days. Yes, those little bees seem to be hibernating. It's possible that they have been killed by the wind saw. This wind saw would rather kill the wrong people than let them go. Yes. The next day, the military report arrived at Shiping Prefecture again. This time, it was about Yangshang's army stockpiling rations. Fire County. Fire County. Feng Jixing buried his head in the map and looked around. Commander, Fire County is not marked. It is too small. In fact, it is only a small town. It should be in this position. Guanxing pointed at a certain place on the map. So close, Feng Jixing's heart raced. This was the most natural reaction of a famous general when he saw an opportunity. He said, about 15 kilometers. The cavalry will arrive in an hour. How much rations are there in total? About 1,000,000 stones. They are all resources collected from the virtuous Sky Province and Eastcom Province. Guanxing smiled. Commander, this is too close. It's like they are giving it to us. Don't you find it strange? It is indeed strange, but it is also very tempting. Feng Jixing slowly sat down. Sometimes I know it might be bait, but I still want to take a bite. What should I do? Commander, do you really want to take a bite? Yes. Feng Jixing took a deep breath. Chen Yu and Yangshang are bait for me. If I don't take a bite, wouldn't I be disrespecting them? Commander, what do you mean? Before Marshal Lin left, he left behind 2,000 winged clan members for me. These winged clan members are equipped with fire starters, so it shouldn't be a problem for them to burn 1,000,000 tons of rations. Immediately pass down my order to mobilize the entire city. I order Zhang Wei to lead 30,000 men, and set off at midnight for Huaxi Prefecture with great fanfare. However, they are not to enter within a 5-kilometer radius of Huaxi Prefecture. The winged clan will mainly set the area on fire in the sky. Yes, Commander is wise. This subordinate will get to it immediately. Don't be in a hurry to leave. There is still a second order. Qi Shiping Prefecture's 30,000 cavalrymen are to launch a surprise attack on the Shang army's camp at night. Since Yangshang has set the bait in Fire County, I will take the bait at Lu River. They will definitely not be on guard. Feng Jixing stood up and looked in the direction of Lu River, his cloak fluttering in the wind. Guanxing stood there in a daze. As the saying goes, the art of war is deceitful. He finally understood what was going on. Chapter 1165. After nightfall, there was no light in the starry night. The entire West Mountain province was shrouded in the curtain of darkness. In Huaxi Prefecture, a flock of crows remained silent on the withered branches. Every now and then, a flock of them would take flight. The entire Huaxi Prefecture was filled with soldiers from all directions. Yangshang had deployed a total of 300,000 elite soldiers to ambush them here. But after a long while, all they heard was the clamor of Zhang Wei's troops from afar. Not a single person entered Huaxi Prefecture's granaries. Not long after, beams of light descended from the sky. These were the kindling materials thrown down by the Wing tribe. The granaries caught fire one after another. Because they had been piled up in a hurry, most of the granaries were connected together. Once the fire started, it quickly spread. Under the tree, the distant flames illuminated Yangshang's expression. He squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. Why haven't their aerial troops been attacked by the blades in the wind? Sun Shi frowned. I don't know either. Perhaps the blades are under Feng Jixing's control. Put out the fire immediately. Send the cavalry to flank the enemy from behind and kill them. Yes. At the same time, The camp on the banks of the Lu River was ablaze. Amidst the flames, the silhouettes of the imperial guards could be seen flying past. Feng Jixing was dressed in a white robe and personally led the troops to attack the camp. Wherever he passed, no one could stop him. The 30,000 cavalrymen killed whoever they saw. They broke through 3 camps in a row and killed countless enemies. Feng Jixing's 2 sabers were already dripping with blood. In a short 2 hours, the 30,000 cavalrymen had crushed the 100,000 soldiers on the banks of the river. The imperial army's cavalry moved like lightning, catching the enemy off guard. Originally, the Shang army had dragon riders as scouts. However, most of them had been killed by the wind saws, so they didn't dare to fly into the sky. As a result, they suffered a crushing defeat tonight. Feng Jixing looked at the sky. 2 hours had passed. He raised his bloodied crimson phoenix saber and shouted, "Retreat! The 3rd camp will take the lead, the 2nd in the middle, and the 3rd at the rear. Retreat to Shiping City at full speed." Yes. The drums rumbled. Not many of the 30,000 cavalrymen were killed. Like a gust of wind, they quickly disappeared into the night, leaving behind a messy Shang army campsite. At daybreak, the provisions camp in Huaxi Commandery was shrouded in smoke. The fire had finally been extinguished, but a large amount of provisions had been lost. In the central tent, Yang Shang, who had received the military report, trembled. His chest was blocked, and he almost couldn't continue. He slammed the table with an ashen face and roared, "Why is it like this?" Lu River had nearly 200,000 infantrymen. How could they be defeated so easily? The commander, whose helmet was covered in blood, knelt on the ground, trembling, and said, "They came too fast, and they were all well-equipped cavalry. We didn't even receive any news before all the cavalry were killed. It was only when we heard the sound of hooves that we knew the enemy had attacked our camp, but it was already too late. 3 camps were breached consecutively, and we suffered more than 60,000 casualties. Trash. A bunch of trash." Yang Shang flew into a rage. Soon she looked at the commander and said, "Your vigilance is too lax. What are you doing here? Are you waiting for His Majesty to chop off your head?" "Yes, this general will take his leave." He hurriedly left. How could this be? How could this be the result? Yang Shang looked confused. "We used Huaxi Commandery as bait, with 300,000 soldiers as bait, but why did Feng Jixing use 200,000 infantrymen as bait? Is there such a fish in the world that would take the bait?" Sun Shi said, "Your Majesty, I'm afraid that Marshal Chen Yu's plan has already been seen through by Feng Jixing. That's why Feng Jixing attacked while we were unprepared, killing countless of our men at Lu River." "Chen Yu, what do you say?" Yang Shang suddenly slammed the table with a murderous aura. Chen Yu sat there dejectedly and murmured, "This defeat is all my fault. I underestimated Feng Jixing's strategy. Your Majesty, please punish me. Chen Yu is willing to accept any punishment. Men, remove Marshal Chen Yu's rank and demote him to Cheji General. I will temporarily take over the position of Marshal. Sun Shi will be the military advisor of the army. Immediately devise a plan to break through Shiping City." Yes. Chen Yu knelt there quietly. He had been demoted by 2 ranks in an instant, but he was not angry. Instead, he laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Yang Shang said coldly. Chen Yu said self-deprecatingly, "I am not a match for Lin Muyu or Feng Jixing. I deserve this outcome. Your Majesty is wise." Yang Shang's gaze swept across the crowd and said, "Let's discuss what we should do next. Our rations are already running low. Furthermore, Feng Jixing is currently at the peak of his power. I'm afraid we won't be able to take down Shiping City in a short period of time." Sun Shi said, "Marshal, Shiping City is also running low on rations. Even if Si Kongyao has hoarded a portion of rations, Shiping City's rations have always been supplied by the surrounding farms and counties. Almost every day, there are caravans transporting rations into Shiping City. However, after we besieged the city, the supply from the merchant associations and the caravans has been cut off. The rations for nearly 2 million people in Shiping City is not a small number. As long as we surround Shiping City, I am certain that they will collapse on their own." Feng Jixing, Lin Muyu, and the other generals from Shattered Cauldron Realm claim to be benevolent and righteous. They are not willing to eat humans, so they won't be able to hold out for long. Good. Immediately send orders to the surrounding counties to prepare rations. We can hold out, but Feng Jixing cannot. Yes. Yang Shang's gaze turned cold. He looked at Chen Yu and said, General Chen Yu, your hometown, Searing Han City, has always been famous for its abundance of rations. Since the front lines no longer need you, why don't General lead 500 cavalry back to Searing Han City and prepare rations on my behalf? The surrounding generals were stunned. Yang Shang wanted Yang Shang to be a rations officer. This was too humiliating. Marshal, Vice Commander of the Heaven's End Corps, Wei Qiyang, had an ugly expression as he called out to Chen Yu in a low voice. Chen Yu pretended not to hear. He lowered his head and kowtowed. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your trust. I will prepare rations as soon as possible and send them to the front lines. Good. Go. Give the commander's seal of the Heaven's End Corps to Wei Qiyang. The corps will be under Wei Qiyang's command for the time being. Yes. At noon in Chen Yu's tent, he had already packed up and was ready to set out. Hua. The tent flap was suddenly opened. Two generals walked in with their hands on the hilt of their swords. One of them was the temporary commander of the Heaven's End Corps, Wei Qiyang. The other had his head lowered, and his face could not be seen. Raise your face. Chen Yu said indifferently. That person raised his head. Instantly, Chen Yu was shocked. Zhou Binlong. It was Zhou Binlong, the general who guarded Searing Han City and commanded the 200,000-strong Earth's End Corps. Yes, General. Zhou Binlong and Wei Qiyang knelt together. Your Majesty, we are all old subordinates of the Celestial Empire. Now that Your Majesty has suffered such humiliation, General Wei and I can't stand it anymore. As long as Your Majesty gives the order, we are willing to lead our troops to take back the entire Celestial Empire and restore the rule of our Celestial Empire. Are you all crazy? Chen Yu asked indifferently. Wei Qiyang shook his head. We are not crazy. Your Majesty, think about it. That was then, and this is now. Back then, when Yang Shang had 60,000 celestial soldiers under his command, we naturally wouldn't be able to stop him. But now all of Yang Shang's subordinates are mortals, and we have 400,000 soldiers under our command. In addition to the garrisons of the various provinces of the Celestial Empire, we have close to 1 million soldiers. Why should we lower ourselves to a despicable person like Yang Shang? This general has also seen the situation today. Victory and defeat are common in war. Yang Shang vented his anger on Your Majesty just because he lost. Such a person is not worthy of Your Majesty's loyalty. As long as Your Majesty says the word, we are willing to shed our blood and die 10,000 times over. Get up, everyone. Be careful that the walls have ears. Chen Yu's gaze was indifferent as he said, This matter needs to be discussed at length. Wei Qiyang, you must find a good opportunity to lead the 200,000 elites of the Heaven's End Corps back to our homeland. As for me, once I leave, I will be like a dragon returning to the sea, a bird returning to the forest. I'm afraid I will never return. Rest assured, Your Majesty. Wei Qiyang's gaze was burning as he said, This subject has just received news that Lin Muyu has already dispatched Qianfeng as the chief commander, with Chen Xiaoli, Qin Yan, and Tang Zhen as the generals. They are leading a 200,000-strong army to reinforce Shiping City. They will arrive within 3 days. Once these 200,000 troops arrive, Feng Jixing will be able to launch a counterattack from within and without. When that time comes, the Shang army will likely fall into chaos. This subject will find an opportunity to feign defeat and lead the troops eastward to return to our homeland. Good. Chen Yu said, Zhou Binlong, immediately dispatch a large number of troops to guard the pass outside the Forest of No Return and seal off the entire territory of the Celestial Empire. Issue my imperial edict. When Wei Qiyang returns with the Heaven's End Corps, it will be the day our Celestial Empire reclaims our homeland. Yes. Phoenix Mountain was located at the border between the Liaishan province and the Hongyan province. It was named for the appearance of phoenixes, but that was an ancient legend. As for whether phoenixes actually existed, no one could say for sure. Fenghuang Mountain stretched for hundreds of miles, forming a natural barrier between the two provinces. In the middle of the mountain, there was a stronghold called Fenghuang Pass. It was a huge stronghold that could accommodate 100,000 soldiers. Coincidentally, Hisong had sent General Lin Shuang to lead 100,000 wolf soldiers to defend Fenghuang Pass. On the west side of the mountain range, the 200,000 elites under Lin Muyu's command had already set up camp. Banners fluttered in the wind as they formed a large line. It was an astonishing sight, but they wouldn't be able to take down Phoenix Mountain in a short period of time. The defending troops of Phoenix Mountain also didn't dare to act rashly. If they were to fight in the forest, it would only take a day for the Longdan army camp to devour the 100,000 wolf soldiers. A cool breeze blew gently in the afternoon. Above the mountain range, Lin Muyu led Wei Chou, Si Kongyao, Situ Sun, and the others to survey the terrain. From afar, Phoenix Pass looked like a colossus entrenched in the valley. The height of the fortress was at least 25 meters, which was very frightening. Moreover, the walls were all made of hard rocks mined from the ground, so one could imagine how sturdy it was. How many magic crystal cannons do we have? Lin Muyu asked. 220 cannons. Wei Chou replied. Do you think that 200 magic crystal cannons can destroy Phoenix Pass? He asked. It will be difficult. Si Kongyao shook her head and said, Brother, look, the outer wall of Phoenix Pass has a total of 3 layers. Our magic crystal cannons can at most penetrate 2 layers. Moreover, the wolf soldiers are well trained and are good at mounted archery and cavalry assaults. Their battle strength is much stronger than Longshi's Black Rock army. Yes. Lin Muyu looked into the distance. On the open area outside the pass, there were densely packed wolf soldiers training. The sound of hooves thundered and dust rose into the sky. The opponent this time was indeed very difficult. Chapter 1166. They're cursing at the top of their lungs, but the people in Phoenix Pass seem to have turned into cowards. Not a single one dares to fight. Damn it. Situ Sun sat down beside the commander's seat and gulped down the entire pot of water. Who's the commander in Phoenix Pass? Lin Muyu asked. Lin Shuang, a former commander of the Blackstone Empire. You can say that he's from the same family as you. Si Kongyao replied. Oh. Kindred, do you think I can persuade him to surrender by appealing to his emotions and reasoning? Forget it. He's Hisong's cousin. His relationship with him is much stronger than yours. You should have said so earlier. Lin Muyu looked at the terrain of Phoenix Pass on the sand table and remained silent. Can we send soldiers over Phoenix Mountain and launch a surprise attack? Situ Shui asked. No. Lin Muyu shook her head. Half of the wolf soldiers are cavalry. Sending a small number of foot soldiers would be suicide. Let's think of another way. Why don't we try attacking tomorrow? Wei Chou asked. Yes, let's try. The next day, the Longdan army camp quickly attacked Phoenix Pass. However, they retreated in just 2 hours. Wei Chou hugged his helmet and walked into the commander's tent with a gloomy face. No, we can't break in. The magic crystal cannons have already turned the walls into pockmarks, but they still can't collapse. If only Qianfeng's giant flying snakes were here. If a few of them were to attack, I'm afraid Phoenix Pass would be razed to the ground in the blink of an eye. How many people did we lose? 700. 700 people in just a short while? Lin Muyu frowned. We can't continue fighting like this. The morale of the army will be in chaos before we even reach Red Rock City. That's right. Lin Muyu pondered for a moment before raising her head and asking, what is Hisong doing in Red Rock City? As for Hisong, he is the valley master of the Wolf Valley. He has always been content with his own territory. Now that he has obtained the strong city of Red Rock City, he spends every day seeking pleasure. He also sends people to search for strong men to sacrifice in order to obtain more wolf soldiers. These wolf soldiers have astonishing battle strength and are born with divine strength. They are also quite bloodthirsty. Once they enter the battlefield, they become like wild beasts. How do they compare to the elites of the Longdan army camp? In terms of individual combat ability, he is superior. Wei Chou said. Fortunately, Not all the 200,000 wolf soldiers under Hisong are real wolf soldiers. Only about half of them have obtained the secret sacrificial technique of the Wolf Valley, and are real wolf soldiers. How many true wolf soldiers does Lin Shuang have in Phoenix Pass? About 20,000. This will be troublesome, Wei Chou said. My lord, forgive me for speaking bluntly. If it is a frontal battle, our army's battle strength is not inferior to the wolf soldiers. But when it comes to defending the city, the wolf soldiers have astonishing arm strength and excellent archery skills. Of the 700 Longdan army camp soldiers that died in battle, most of them were killed by sharp arrows. In a siege battle, we are definitely not a match for the wolf soldiers. Si Kongyao blinked her eyes and said, I am afraid that the news of our arrival at Phoenix Pass will quickly spread to Red Rock City. At that time, if Hisong reinforcements his troops, our chances of victory will be even lower. That's right, Lin Muyu said in a low voice. We must end this battle quickly and take down Phoenix Pass. How? Situ-sun asked. In the afternoon, you will lead 5,000 men, and continue to attack the city. Do not attack by force, feign an attack and try to reduce the losses. Is it because I spoke too much? That's right. Wei Chou smiled. My lord, do you have an idea? No idea, but if we continue to attack for a long time without success, Lin Shuang's troops will become arrogant. They will think that our army is tired and lacking in battle strength. This way, perhaps they will be able to take advantage of this. We will attack for 2 days and on the 3rd day, we will break camp and retreat 10 li before setting up camp. Wei Chou's eyes lit up. Haha. My lord, are you planning to use arrogant tactics? That's right. We can only lure Lin Shuang's troops out and exterminate them. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. But the key is whether or not Lin Shuang is a smart person. If he is, then it will be difficult. My lord, don't worry, Wei Chou said. I have already asked around. Lin Shuang is greedy and ruthless. In the 6 months he has been guarding the Red Cliff province, he has killed soldiers and raped women. Moreover, he has a violent temper. Other than listening to Hisong, he has no other good points, but Hisong seems to have given him an order to defend the city and not leave. Then let's wait and see. Loyalty to Hisong and achievement in killing the enemy. Which of these 2 choices will he choose? Haha, this subordinate understands. 2 days later, the Longdan army camp and Baizé mercenaries retreated 10 li and set up camp again. They had already shown signs of retreat. In the middle of the night, light snow fell from the sky. It came just in time. The curtain of snow seemed to boost the enemy's courage. There were dense forests on both sides of the official road. Lin Muyu personally led 100,000 elites to lie in ambush on both sides of the road, while Wei Chou led 100,000 people to guard the camp. The world quickly turned pale white. Everything seemed so quiet. If Lin Shuang came, then it would be a great merit. If not, then the 100,000 troops would freeze in the snow for a night. Lin Muyu's move could be said to be a huge gamble. Time passed bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. Everyone seemed a little anxious. Will they really not come? Lu Bai frowned. Don't talk nonsense, they will definitely come. Si Kongyao glared at him. Lin Muyu squatted in the grass on the snowy ground, looking into the distance. She held the Xianyuan sword in her hand and said, If they don't come, then I can only forfeit my salary for half a year to comfort the soldiers. Si Kongyao smiled sweetly. What if they come? It's best if they come. We have to make sure that Lin Shuang doesn't return alive. After wiping them out, we will immediately attack Phoenix Pass, and use the Dragon Riders and Xingtian army's advantage to break through the city. And they waited until the sky was already beginning to brighten, and the snow had already covered their boots, but Lin Shuang still hadn't come. Situ Sen's hand that was holding the sword was already numb from the cold. That brat Lin Shuang can't be that cowardly, right? If he doesn't even dare to come, then what kind of battle is he going to fight if he's so cowardly? Don't worry, we're almost there. Lin Muyu suddenly smiled. Big Bro sensed it? And 5 li out. Situ-sun was overjoyed. All troops be on guard. Don't take action yet. Wait until the cannons sound from the camp, and then we'll slaughter our way out. No one is allowed to make the first move. Everyone said in a low voice, yes. Sure enough, not long after, the sound of hooves could be heard. On the official road in the distance, densely packed cavalry galloped over. There seemed to be about 20,000 cavalrymen, and the rest were infantry. They were marching at an extremely fast speed, majestically. It seemed like Lin Shuang had really gone all out, preparing to deal a fatal blow to the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel elated. She laughed in a low voice and said, "We didn't wait for nothing this night. We actually caught such a big fish. This is great." The faces of the generals were also filled with joy. The enemy's front quickly passed through, heading straight for the main camp. Not long after, the sound of cannons could be heard from the main camp, and then the sound of killing rose into the sky. "They're moving out." Lin Muyu turned around and mounted her horse. In a low voice she shouted, "Si Kongyao will lead the troops to cover the rear. Situ Sun and Situ Shui will attack from the left and right. Completely surround them for me. Don't let a single one escape." 200,000 soldiers were more than enough to surround 70 to 80,000 soldiers. Lin Muyu personally led the cavalry of the Longdan army camp to attack. Their target was the infantry of the enemy. Instantly, they were like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. They slaughtered their way through as if there was no one there. However, the moment the ambush started, the morale of Lin Shuang's troops had already collapsed. They had no intention to fight at all, and fled in all directions. Only the 20,000 wolf soldiers personally led by Lin Shuang were the real elites. They took out their arrows aimed and killed hundreds of Wei Chao's cavalry in the blink of an eye. However, Wei Chao was too fast, and they were about to engage in a close combat. In the crowd, Lin Shuang was wearing a dark red armor. The sword in his hand was gleaming coldly, and his body was surrounded by the sacred energy. He roared, "Fight! The wolf soldiers will never surrender." A group of cavalrymen roared in unison. Their faces became very ferocious. Green veins popped up on their faces, and dense hair grew on their skin. Fangs even protruded from their mouths. It was as if they had turned into wild beasts. Indeed, they were like a pack of wolves. So this is the power of sacrifice. Wei Chou raised his hand and shot an arrow, directly piercing the throats of 3 wolf soldiers. He sneered and said, "That's all? Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." The cavalry of the Longdan army camp charged forward at high speed, and the sound of killing shook the heavens. Although the wolf soldiers were strong, compared to the troops of the Longdan army camp, their well-trained tactics were too messy, and they could not unleash their full power. Their sharp claws could only leave marks on the armor of the soldiers of the Longdan army camp, but they could not pierce through their bodies. On the contrary, their bodies were quickly cut into pieces by the cavalry. Blood quickly spread, and the messy snow was dyed red. After a bloody battle, the 20,000 wolf soldiers refused to retreat and were finally killed. However, most of the infantry were defeated and begged for mercy, becoming prisoners of the Longdan army camp. After daybreak, Wei Chou led a group of cavalry to attack Fenghuang Pass. Xing Tian's army descended from the sky and threw Lin Shuang's head off the city wall. Immediately, the morale of the soldiers in the city was thrown into chaos, and almost without bloodshed, Fenghuang Pass was captured. By noon, the flag of the Kingdom of Shang had been replaced by the royal flag of the purple Yinghua flower. However, in the afternoon, the eastern side of Fenghuang Pass had been sealed off. When He Song received the news, he led 150,000 soldiers over. In addition, there were also 100,000 soldiers from the Prairie Blazing province, making a total of 250,000. An hour later, the wolf soldiers shot the letter of challenge into the city, and it quickly reached Lin Muyu's hands. She opened the letter of challenge, and the handwriting on it was vigorous and forceful. It seemed to be a letter written by He Song himself. "Yuqin traitors have invaded, and the heavens are angry and the people are resentful. I heard that the mighty person under me is willing to hunt with me in the Milan forest, and I hope that you will wash your neck clean before beheading me." Si Kongyao looked at the letter of challenge, and her face flushed red. She stomped her feet in anger. "How dare you?" Lin Muyu glanced at her. Why are you so angry? Chapter 1167. He Song's army of 250,000 men attacked Fenghuang Pass. But Fenghuang Pass was a strong city and Lin Muyu took it down without shedding a single drop of blood. The fortress was very intact and there was no problem in defending it. Moreover, from the first day, Lin Muyu had already made preparations to defend it. The rations in Fenghuang Pass were enough for 200,000 men to use for 5 days. It was not too late to immediately send a letter to Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi to prepare rations from Qianshan City. At dusk, the battle ended and the attacking army gradually dispersed, leaving only the devastated city walls and densely packed corpses. A general success was built on 10,000 bones. In this battle, He Song had left at least 10,000 corpses, but it did not shake Phoenix Pass in the slightest. The cold wind blew. Lin Muyu held onto the cold battlements as she looked at the enemy camp in the distance outside the city and said, "It is not a long-term plan to go on like this. Calculating the arrows used today, there should be at least 200,000 to 300,000, right?" At the side, Si Kongyao nodded her head and said, "Only more and no less. How many arrows do we have left? There are still around 500,000 left. In one day, we have used almost half." Wei Chou said worriedly, "Tonight, we must go out of the city to clean up the battlefield. At the very least, we must pull back the arrows that were shot." "Not only that," Lin Muyu sighed. "I saw that many arrows were broken after they were shot out. We still need to make new arrows. How many people in the army know how to make arrows?" "Most of them only have a rough understanding, but there are not many who can make fine arrows. Most of the arrows that we brought were made by the archery masters of the Ministry of War." Wei Chou smiled. "Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but if the soldiers were to make arrows, the lethality would at least be reduced by half or perhaps even more." Lin Muyu frowned. "Yao, are there any local archery masters?" "Yes." Si Kongyao gave a definite answer saying, "The Blackstone Empire has always been militaristic, and many of the people in the prefectural cities rely on the military to make a living. Every prefectural city has at least 100 arrow craftsmen, swordsmiths and the like. If brother needs them, I will immediately send people to invite these arrow craftsmen over, but the remuneration cannot be low. They are a group of people who make a living by making arrows." "No problem." Lin Muyu turned around and said, "When I came here, I saw a large bamboo forest on the hillside behind us. This bamboo forest can be cut down and used as tree trunks for arrows. Go and do it, the more the better, the faster the better." "Don't worry." Si Kongyao blinked her eyes and said with a smile, "An archery master and 2 apprentices can make at least 100 arrows a day." I know the relationship between my lord and Her Highness the Empress, but I still have to warn my lord that you must guard against the heart of a villain. The more power you have, the more angry and intolerable those who want you to step down from the altar will be." Lin Muyu was startled and said, "Wei Chou, you mean those old officials in Lanyan City?" "Yes. I'm not worried about this. Divine Marquis Zheng Yifan is now loyal to Shaoyin, so he shouldn't set me up. But there are others. Among the 12 assistant ministers of the 6 departments, how many of them are really on your side? Although my lord has a godlike status and reputation in the army, in the eyes of those scheming people, you are just a boorish man who is good at fighting. After all, my lord is now a mortal and no longer a god. You need to consider the aftermath of all this." A lot of snow had fallen on Wei Chou's shoulders, and he stood majestically in the snow like a statue. He looked at Lin Muyu with clear eyes and said, "Recently, the informants I have arranged in Lanyan City have been sending back news. There is negative news about my lord and General Feng in Lanyan City, such as massacring the civilians of the celestial pole continent, privately hoarding mansions, cultivating their own forces in the army, and so on. We must guard against these people. If we seize the whole world, I also don't want it to fall into the hands of those despicable and shameless people. I also don't want a famous general like my lord to suffer injustice." "That won't happen." Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, "Good brother, don't think so much. Think about it, Xiaoyin and Xiaoxi are both my wives, Suyu is Xiaoyin's little aunt, and Qin Lian is Ayan's father. Almost all of Lanyan City belongs to us. No matter how those despicable people overturn the rivers and seas, they will never overturn the truth. Yes. Wei Chou nodded heavily and said, I am the commander of the Longdan army camp, and the 20 generals who are in charge of tens of thousands of soldiers are all old generals who have followed my lord for many years. This time, I will never give up my military power. If anyone wants to hurt my lord, I will use the strongest army in the world to exterminate their whole family. Lin Muyu's eyes couldn't help but warm up. She turned around and sat on the cold battlement, holding her head. She felt so uncomfortable that tears almost fell down. Your Excellency, what's wrong with you? Wei Chou was stunned. Lin Muyu looked up at the flying snow in the sky and said, Wei Chou, I hope the way of heaven still exists. Otherwise, if you and I are both mortals for the rest of our lives, I will order you to be killed when we return to Lanyan City. Wei Chou was silent, but he seemed to have guessed that Lin Muyu would say such a thing. He said softly, Your Excellency, are you worried that I will eventually lead to a disaster because of my military power? Yes. Lin Muyu looked at him indifferently and said, In the future, it will be the Congress that will be in charge of the world in Lanyan City. The Congress will never tolerate people like you. In order to avoid disaster, I can only kill you. So don't force me, Wei Chou. When that day comes, let go of your military power, let go of everything. You and I, as brothers, will leave this trouble. Wei Chou knelt on the ground with one knee firmly, tears welling up in his eyes. I just don't want to see a famous general like you suffer injustice. I am just a pawn on your chessboard. I never thought that your Excellency would treat me as a brother. No, you have always been. You have been since we were in the Eagle's Nest camp. You are the most trustworthy brother. Lin Muyu helped him up and said, Remember, don't be obsessed with power and wealth. They will devour you like a whirlpool. In the future, when we succeed, you and I, plus Feng Jixing and Situ-san, will take our families and leave this whirlpool of power. There are many places in the world where we, Xiaoyao, can live freely. Yes, thank you, Your Excellency. Wei Chou gritted his teeth and said, I, Wei Chou, will never hold a military power for myself. I will be loyal to the Empire and to our friendship for the rest of my life. Don't say so much. Situ-san has just ordered the dead horses to be roasted. Come in and drink with me to warm up. It's spring, but it's still so cold. Yes, it's really cold. On the 18th of January, a row of light cavalry appeared in the snow, holding the purple Yinghua imperial flag. Amidst the wind, a winged person fluttered down and chattered something. The leader of the cavalry did not say much. He took out a letter from his bosom and said, Please deliver this to Commander Feng Jixing. The army will arrive after nightfall. The winged person hid the letter and flew away. In Shiping Prefecture, Feng Jixing, who had received the letter, could not help but laugh happily. Has Qianfeng arrived? Xiang Yu asked. Yes. Feng Jixing handed the letter to Xiang Yu. Xiang Yu glanced at it and said, It is indeed Qianfeng's handwriting, but, Commander, are you sure it is not forged? It must be Qianfeng's handwriting. Look at how he addressed Yangshang. For words, lightning-throwing Tower Mao, are enough to prove everything. Why? Because you once scolded Qianfeng like this. And Qianfeng, that dumb roe deer, only knew what it meant 8 years later when he submitted to the Empire. At that time, he still thought that you was praising him for his military strategy. Send the 3 armies and have a good rest. Prepare for the decisive battle with Yangshang tomorrow morning. Yes, Your Excellency. Chapter 1168. On the 19th of January, the intermittent snowfall stopped once again, and the warm sun shone on the land. The sound of war drums reverberated across Jianlongjiwen. This fertile land had become the best battlefield. The Yangshang army had always been known for its cavalry's prowess, and Qianfeng was also very confident in the Qin army's positional warfare. They had already set up their formation before dawn. Looking from Shiping City, the fertile land to the east was densely packed with people. The violet flower imperial flag and the dark blue uniforms of the Empire's soldiers formed a sea of blue. In the distance, the red uniforms of the Yangshang army looked like they were dyed with blood. In terms of numbers, the Shang army still had the absolute advantage. More than 400,000 people against Qianfeng's 200,000 people naturally had the upper hand. However, there were still more than 100,000 people under Feng Jixing in the city. Once they left the city, the outcome would be hard to predict. Who's Qianfeng's vanguard? They've already set up their formation. Xiang Yu frowned. It's Chen Xiaoli, the commander of Qihai City's garrison. Feng Jixing raised his eyebrows and smiled. Chen Xiaoli was originally a general of the Tang family. She's like a snow wolf in the north, good at seizing opportunities and tearing open the enemy's flaws with fierce attacks. Just wait and see. The vanguard of the Yangshang army is Han Yuan's Eastcom army. They're definitely not Chen Xiaoli's match. Is that so? Xiang Yu declined to comment. When do we attack? Don't be anxious. Let's first grind down the morale of the Shang army and let everyone have a good rest. We'll talk in the afternoon. This battle won't end in a day or two. All right. 5 minutes later, the war drums boomed. The vanguard of both sides began to charge at each other. Chen Xiaoli didn't personally lead the charge. Instead, she raised her sword, and the Kiliarchs behind her led the charge. The infantry and cavalry slowly advanced in a phalanx formation. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the infantry was mostly made up of heavy shields, spears, and bows. There were about 20,000 of them in the center, while the cavalry was divided into two groups, waiting to move out. On the other hand, Han Yuan's battle strategy was much simpler. The cavalry charged brainlessly. Ha, one lost. Feng Jixing laughed. Guanxing and Lin Sun laughed as well. Most of the commanders in the Shang army were people with high cultivation and reputation, and not those who truly knew how to use troops. This was the fatal flaw of the Shang army. Just as expected, when the 50,000 cavalrymen of the Shang army charged into the shield formation and crashed into each other, wantonly slaughtering Chen Xiaoli's infantry, the cavalrymen that Chen Xiaoli had stationed on the flanks began to pick up speed. Like a gale sweeping away leaves, they swept through the chaotic enemy cavalry formation, and for a moment, the sounds of slaughter rose to the heavens. On one side there was chaos and there was no direction, while on the other side, there was order and formation. Even if there was a great disparity in the strength of both sides, the result was still determined. Tactics were always the most important part of a war. Chen Xiaoli doesn't seem to have the desire to initiate a battle. Lin Sun said, his square formation hasn't moved too much forward. Instead, the infantry of the Shang army has unknowingly moved 3 li forward. This is the brilliance of Chen Xiaoli and Qianfeng. Feng Jixing laughed. The heavy infantry of the Shang army are just ordinary people, but their shields, armors, and weapons add up to 100 jin. If an ordinary person carries 100 jin of equipment and moves 3 li, their stamina will be more or less exhausted. But the cavalrymen are different. Look at the southeast corner. Qianfeng's 10,000 elite demon cavalrymen are ready to attack. Lin Sun took a closer look and immediately understood. Which one of the commanders on the battlefield wasn't a famous general? Not long after, the 80,000 heavy infantry of the Shang army arrived at the battlefield, but before they could complete their formation, the sounds of killing could be heard from afar. Qianfeng had already ordered the 10,000 elite demon cavalrymen and 5,000 armored demons to charge. Speed against slowness. In an instant, the 80,000 heavy infantry were smashed into pieces by the demon phalanx, which was far fewer in number than them. How could there be any defensive formation? They were completely reduced to being slaughtered. Commander Han Yuan, how do you use your troops? On the viewing platform of the Kingdom of Shang, Yang Shang asked indifferently. Han Yuan's face was ashen. Your Majesty, at the side, Sun Shi said. Your Majesty, the Eastcom army will definitely be defeated in less than 2 hours. What should we do now? Yang Shang was somewhat anxious. Sun Shi smiled faintly. Those so-called gods were originally the elites under Qianfeng. To defeat them, we can only rely on your Majesty's most elite army. You mean, the Divine Feather Battalion? Yes, Your Majesty. Please send out the Divine Feather Battalion. Only the Divine Feather Battalion can turn the situation around. All right. Yang Shang took a deep breath. Duo La go. Don't disappoint me. Yes. Duo La mounted his horse, and after giving the order, the 40,000 Divine Feather Battalion cavalry charged out like a whirlwind. As for the Qin army, Qin Yan led the national army in a charge to protect the demon army from being destroyed by the Divine Feather Battalion. Time trickled by, and soon it was close to noon. The sounds of killing could be heard on Long Yuan, and everyone could even faintly smell the stench of blood coming from the battlefield. On the city wall, the generals looked at the battle situation in the distance. Xiang Yu frowned and said, "The Divine Feather Battalion has already attacked. If we continue to wait, Qin Yan's national army will be completely annihilated." Feng Jixing nodded. Tangzhen has also launched an attack, and the Divine Feather Battalion is being held back. Pass down the order, leave 5,000 men to defend the city, and the rest will follow me to charge at the Shang army's center. Yes. Not long after, the majestic Imperial Army cavalry charged out of the city and went straight for the shaken Shang army. Furthermore, the Imperial Army was waiting for the exhausted, so one could imagine how elite they were. For a moment, the battlefield was in a stalemate, but the addition of Feng Jixing's troops caused a ripple, and the sounds of killing became even more intense. Du Guxian's 150,000 Thunder Spirit Army faced Feng Jixing. Long Yuan was in a complete mess, and hundreds of thousands of soldiers were engaged in a fierce battle. Corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed like a river. The snow and grass were covered with blood, and broken weapons and ownerless warhorses were everywhere. The artillery of both sides had been exhausted, and now they could only fight with their flesh and blood. Even the famous generals of the Qin Empire gradually lost control of their formation, and the battle turned from a positional battle into a chaotic battle. What was left was the judgment of fate, and no one knew who was the real winner. The fierce battle continued, and the people on the battlefield rushed back and forth. After a whole night, the fighting still didn't stop. Feng Jixing even passed down the order for the three armies to take turns to rest and fight in a chaotic battle. Many soldiers retreated 3 miles back and slept for 2 hours. After eating food and drinking water, they immediately grabbed their bloody weapons and rushed to the battlefield. Neither side was willing to retreat even half a step. Seeing the corpses everywhere on Long Yuan, the formation of the armies became chaotic, and the two armies were fighting each other everywhere. In the blink of an eye, it was night again, and it was already the second day of the fierce battle. The two sides stopped fighting for 6 hours. Before the sun rose, they started fighting again. Feng Jixing's battle robe was already dyed red with blood. He didn't know how many times he had escaped the pursuit of the two devil gods, Longxi and Filei, through the cover of the tomes of Arcane. The Imperial Guards suffered heavy casualties, and there were at least thousands of soldiers who died under the hands of the two devil gods. But this was war, and whoever lost first would lose the control of Xishan province. In the dark night, the torches were almost all extinguished. Feng Jixing's face was covered with blood. He slowly pulled out the red phoenix saber, and the saber light illuminated the people nearby. He saw that Qianfeng, Qin Yan, Tangzhen, and the others were also in a difficult situation. Their armors were broken, and they were covered with blood. Moreover, each of them had suffered injuries of different degrees. In such a fierce battle, no one could be uninjured. "How many people do we have left?" Feng Jixing asked. "Less than half," Qianfeng said. "It doesn't matter, the Shang army's losses are even greater." Feng Jixing's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. He raised his saber and shouted, "The enemy is 2 miles away, kill them, fight to the end." Everyone raised their weapons and shouted, "Fight to the end." If the Grim Reaper saw this scene, he would definitely be very happy, because the ground was filled with souls and dead people. Seeing that Long Yuan had become purgatory on earth, a battlefield of slaughter. On the second night of the fierce battle, the Shang army's strength was instantly reduced by more than half. On the third day, the Shang army began to collapse. Facing the iron-blooded army commanded by Feng Jixing and Qianfeng, the Tianju Corps fled. and more than 100,000 soldiers became deserters. How could the remaining nearly 100,000 soldiers be a match for the Qin army? At noon, Yangshang ordered a retreat, and they retreated to Tianji City. After fighting for 3 days, they finally won. The Qin army rested where they were, and almost everyone had a feeling as if they had escaped from purgatory. Those who were able to survive this battle were all very lucky. On the first day of the defeat, Yangshang killed 27 senior generals while retreating. On the second day, Yangshang ordered 54 civil officials to be killed. On the third day, Yangshang arrived at Tianji City and killed 288 civil and military officials. The news of the defeat had spread in Tianji province, and also in the capital of the Kingdom of Shang. Almost everyone knew that the Emperor Shang's army had suffered a crushing defeat. Although the government posted an announcement saying that the opponents had been severely injured, everyone knew that Feng Jixing and Qianfeng of the Qin Empire were in Shiping Prefecture, and they were only slightly injured. On the contrary, the Shang army lost 3 commanders, 37 captaincy, and almost all the senior generals were killed in the battle. The rest were killed by Yangshang, who was furious, for the crime of incompetence. The worst rumor was that the kingdom of Shang was completely divided. From the east came the news that Qinyu had reascended to the throne in Laohan City. The whole Celestial Empire had broken away from the control of the kingdom of Shang and established a new country. The world was completely divided into 3 parts. Among them, the kingdom of Shang was in decline, and the Qin state was the strongest. The Battle of Longyuan was the most tragic battle of the Qin Empire. Qianfeng and Feng Jixing had a total of 350,000 troops. After the Battle of Longyuan, there were less than 160,000 left. While the Shang army was heavily injured, they were also heavily injured. After all, most of the soldiers of the Kingdom of Shang were new recruits, and so were the troops of Shiping Prefecture. They were poorly trained. If it weren't for the lack of training of the opponents, perhaps Feng Jixing and Qianfeng would have been annihilated. Chapter 1169. After 2 whole days, the corpse collection team still hadn't completed their task of cleaning up the battlefield. However, most of the weapons and armors had been transported into the city. After all, the Shang army was only defeated, but not dead. Shiping Prefecture, Feng Jixing was overseeing things. His right arm was wrapped in gauze, and his face was a little pale. Probably because he had lost too much blood. Even the pen he was holding was trembling. He signed the words Feng Jixing on the document from the Military Supply Department. "Deputy Commander, you should rest more," Tang Jin said in a low voice. "How can I be in the mood to rest?" Feng Jixing laughed bitterly and said, "There are still hundreds of thousands of corpses outside the city that haven't been buried. Although loyal bones are buried everywhere, we should at least collect the corpses of the fallen warriors with dignity, right? Have the scouts returned? Has the Shang army made a move? Also, has there been any movement from Qinyu's troops?" Qin Yan cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to Deputy Commander, after this battle, less than half of Yangshang's 550,000 troops remain. Qinyu has already fled to Scorching Han City with more than 100,000 troops from the Heaven's End Corps. Yangshang only has 100,000 troops from the Divine Feather Battalion, East Com Corps, and Thunder Soul Corps. According to the scouts' report, these troops have already left Xishan Province and are stationed at the border of Tianji Province. For the time being, Yangshang will not be able to fight again. Instead, we need to be wary of Qinyu." "Oh, Qinyu has made a move?" "Not for the time being. However, it is said that a day ago, Qinyu announced the restoration of the Celestial Empire in Scorching Han City. Qinyu proclaimed himself as the emperor and appointed Wei Qiang as the marshal, Zhou Binlong and Huang Wanxin as the vice-marshals. He has also reorganized the major corps. Today, the Celestial Empire has at least 800,000 troops. Compared to Yangshang, the Celestial Empire is our biggest enemy." Feng Jixing nodded and sighed. "In a short time, Qinyu will certainly not declare war on us. He knows better than anyone how elite the Qin Empire's army is. Don't worry." "Yes. Beside him, Zhang Wei said, "Commander, we have mobilized all the tailors in Shiping City and the nearby commoners to sew the royal flags for the fallen soldiers. However, there are only 70,000 of them. The cloth and paint are too scarce. Use the supplies from the military supply department. Prepare them for me." Feng Jixing's gaze turned cold. They were originally young farmers, hunters, and craftsmen who joined the army to serve the nation under the Empress's edict. Now that they have died in battle in a foreign land, if we who are still alive don't have a royal flag to bury their bodies with, how can we, who are still alive, face them after we die? Is it just because I'm the deputy commander and you're the deputy commander? Zhang Wei cupped his fists and said, "Yes, I will do my best to supervise." Feng Jixing looked at Chen Xiaoli again and said, "General Chen, you must complete the collection of the corpses as soon as possible. Fortunately, the weather is cold and the corpses won't rot. However, it's hard to guarantee that the wolves in the mountains won't come out to hunt during winter. I don't want the corpses of any of the Empire's martyrs to become food for hungry wolves." "Yes." Chen Xiaoli bowed and said, "I have already sent people to guard the corpses day and night, and drive away the wild beasts. Deputy Commander, please don't worry. However, Deputy Commander, a total of 200,000 soldiers have died in this battle. Where do you plan to bury them?" "Bury them under the Green Mountains at the edge of Jianlong Plain. Bury their corpses together according to the state funeral etiquette." "Yes, Marshal. Please give me another 10,000 men and horses to speed up the construction of the tombs." "Okay." Feng Jixing looked at the generals and said, "Why isn't everyone saying anything?" Qin Yong and Qianfeng were silent. After a while, Qianfeng said, "This is the most tragic battle I've ever experienced in my life. Even now my stomach is still twitching. When I close my eyes, it's as if I can see the desperate scene of the soldiers." Lin Sun sat there blankly with a blank gaze. He said, "This battle has really scared me. I'm even tired of fighting." "Deputy Commander, you won't look down on me, right?" "Why would I?" Feng Jixing relaxed his brows and said, "It's not only you guys. I'm the same. I'm also human. So many people died in battle. The people beside me fell one by one and were badly mutilated. Last night, I also rested for a while and kept having the same nightmare. They were all the wronged souls of those who died in battle, so I was so scared that I didn't dare to sleep anymore." Looking at the dispirited looks of the generals, Feng Jixing smiled and said, "Cheer up. In this battle, the souls of 200,000 brave warriors established the supreme power of the Qin Empire in the Celestial Pole. They didn't die in vain. Her Highness Yin will also confer them the title of martyrs. Their names will all be engraved on the nation-guarding monument." Everyone nodded their heads in delight. Qin Yan said, "I've just received Yu's letter. After Her Highness Yin and Princess she learned of the bloody battle in Jianlong Plain. They rushed overnight. They will probably arrive in a day. Her Highness the Empress wants to personally hold a funeral for the soldiers who died in battle." Feng Jixing smiled slightly. "Send Yu's letter to Lin General and tell him that the West Mountain Province has been defended. Let him concentrate on cleaning up the remnant enemies in the southeast." "Yes." "After you have achieved meritorious service, I will ask Xiao Yin for your contribution and give you a second-rank military rank." Lu Buying immediately knelt down. "Thank you, sir. I will not let you down. Go and make the arrangements." "Yes." Late at night, the cold wind was blowing, but the camp of Hisong's wolf soldiers was noisy. The transportation of supplies and the neighing of war horses mixed together. They had finally decided to retreat. The rations they had brought from Red Rock City were almost exhausted. If they did not retreat now, the wolf soldiers would eat them alive. More importantly, the wolf soldiers' patience had run out. Phoenix Pass had been attacked for a long time, and the wolf soldiers had no other choice but to retreat. The cold wind carried snowflakes on his armor. Hisong was dressed in a red battle robe and riding a fine horse. His eyes were cold as he walked in the middle of the army. He frowned and said in a low voice, "Lower your voice, don't alarm the enemy in Phoenix Pass. If you attract Lin Muyu's attention, no one will have a good ending. Yes, Commander. A group of guard camp soldiers followed closely behind. A black-cloaked strategist rode over and said in a low voice, Commander, we still need to be careful. The army's retreat has caused quite a commotion, and Lin Muyu has dragon riders under him. The moment they discover us, they will definitely ambush us. We need to leave a battalion to cover the rear. I know, I have already left 20,000 infantry of the 2nd Battalion to cover the rear of the camp. 20,000 infantry. The strategist was taken aback. Lin Muyu's armored cavalry is an elite force. Can 20,000 infantry really hold them off? Then what else do you want? Have my 70,000 wolf soldiers stay behind to cover the rear? No, that's not what I mean. It's just that. Commander, please leave 20,000 infantry of the 3rd Battalion to cover the rear. Otherwise, they will not be able to hold Lin Muyu back. If he sees through our retreat, I'm afraid his pursuers will be here in the blink of an eye. Will do as you say. Thank you, Commander. Above the forest, 2 huge figures flew past. It was the dragon riders under the command of the Longdan army camp. Those bastards have finally retreated. Lin Muyu was a little agitated. He quickly slapped the table and said, Attack immediately. Yes. Si Kongyao, Situ-sun Wei-cho, Fengshi and the others all cupped their fists, then grabbed their weapons and followed Lin Muyu out of the meeting hall. The cavalry had already gathered in Guanxi and Guanyi. 100,000 cavalry were ready and waiting for the order. Attack. The war drums thundered, and the 8 gates of Phoenix Pass opened at the same time. Nearly 10 cavalrymen filed out of the pass side by side. The speed at which they set out was quite fast, and in the blink of an eye, they had gathered outside the pass in a dense black mass. Lin Muyu personally supervised the battle. She carried the Xianyuan sword and rode on the treading-in-snow warhorse. She extended her spiritual pulse technique and discovered the 40,000 infantrymen at the back of the enemy's camp. She smiled and said, Pass down my order. All the steel cavalry will circle around the enemy's camp from the north and attack Hisong's wolf soldiers from the north of Milin. Yes. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.